Jane's the aye, so we'll bring the meeting to order. Just before we start, a couple comments from my part. Welcome, everybody. Generally speaking, we'll stop every hour for a stretch and a drink and a smoke if anybody needs one. I guess I shouldn't say that, should I? Anyway, but generally that's what we'll try to do. I tend to chair rather informally, use first names unless somebody objects to that, because I find it cumbersome to say councillor every time, or deputy mayor, as the case may need. I'm not an expert on parliamentary procedure, or Robert's rules is the default here for parliamentary stuff. So I look to the clerk. If something is grievously wrong with what I'm doing, she will again give me the eye, and I'll stop and ask for direction. So I don't know, there'll probably be other stuff come up as we go along, but feel free to stick your arm in the air and ask a question if you're not understanding what we're doing or why we're doing it. So by all means do that, and we'll try to make everybody as comfortable as possible. I'd rather be comfortable and make sure everybody understands what we're doing, rather than right to the letter of the law, although the clerk will argue with me on that one, I'm sure. So, confirmation of the agenda. I need a motion to confirm the agenda as presented.
As amended, actually.
Sorry,
I forgot to.
See, there you are, right away, the mayor's wrong.
No, we forgot to change that when we did the addendum.
Okay, the clerk's wrong, but I didn't say that.
No, that's fine, I'll take that.
Jason, second. Jim, all those in favor? That is carried. Oh, and I forgot to say, Joan, I'm not going to try to, I'm not ignoring you, but you're greatly diminished here this morning. You're just on a little square on the table, but if there's something you need or want, speak up, please, because I may tend to forget that you're actually there.
That's fine, just ignore me, I'm here.
All right, thanks, Joan.
Okay.
Declaration of pecuniary interest. Anyone have one to declare related to any item on the agenda? Hearing none, if one should arise during the course of the meeting, feel free to declare it at that time. So we need a motion to resolve in the committee of the whole, be it resolved that council recess the special council meeting at 9:04 and move into the committee of the whole meeting to allow for fuller discussion regarding the 2023 capital budget. Mover? Martin? Barb? Anyone? I keep wanting to say, is anyone opposed? I'm so used to in camera or virtual meetings. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. What? I told her to speak up if she has something to say. She will, I'm sure.
Okay.
All right. Appointment of the chair. Are you still there, Joan?
She's on hold with that beat.
You still there, Joan?
No. Somehow she's put it on hold.
Yeah, that's a hold thing.
She probably thought she was muting herself, maybe.
Well, I'm not sure I want to listen to that for a couple hours, but
Go ahead. Well, it's still doing it. And I muted.
in any case, we'll proceed. As I say, we need an appointment of the chair. Be it resolved that the committee appoint someone as chair of the committee of the whole meeting on November 23, 2022. Someone have a suggestion? Jason?
Appoint the mayor.
Stop there.
Okay. Seconder? Jim? All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So, we'll move into reports of municipal officers, and the first is William. Morning, Liam.
Morning.
I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Computer's still booting up. So, I guess I'll start by saying the capital budget, I believe, is very similar to what was presented on November 2nd. The major changes was as directed in the fire. The fire truck was funded 300,000 or some 200,000 or something in 2023, but I don't have it on my screen, and about in 2024. And as well as in the finance department, I added, I'm suggesting we investigate replacement of the financial system into something that's a little more modern and can be accessed by the public. And I've loaded I think 100,000 for that. I have no idea how much it's going to cost, and I'm proposing to come out of modernization funds, the remaining modernization funds.
Okay,
And other than that, the most other departments, there have been minor changes and some formula fixes, but nothing significant has changed.
okay. Does anybody have any questions for Liam regarding? Dave?
I think we best go through the budget again in detail because we need to remember we have new people today.
Sure.
I'd be cautious of dipping into the reserve, the tax stabilization reserve or the reserve just yet, because there's other things I think we need to be aware of as far as salary review, maybe even commitments to the old town hall that may come sooner rather than later, or may come later, we're not sure.
Right.
But anyway, let's just be cognizant of the new council
Okay.
members at the table today.
Bear in mind, this is, I guess it's the second swing at the capital budget for now, so
Yeah.
we're not finalizing anything today. This is merely to see what is needed and what are the possibilities, so. Yeah, Liam, maybe if you wouldn't mind just going through each department, summarizing a bit and,
Excuse me, yes.
Mayor Mill, I
Yes.
think it just in the confusion of the phone, we missed a mover and seconder to put this on the floor unless I just missed it myself.
no, I missed it completely. Be it resolved, the committee received the staff report, Finance 2022-013-2023 capital budget as information, and that the committee recommend the council receive the staff report, capital budget as information, and the committee recommend the council direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. So we need a mover to put that on the table. Jason and Jim. All those in, oh wait, we're not gonna vote on it yet. We're gonna wait for Liam to tell us what we're gonna vote on. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, you're gonna go through the capital budget
Yes,
briefly,
yes.
please.
Well, I guess we might as well start with the finance, and might as well go through in order, and should be relatively quick with those. Still waiting for my computer to boot up here.
Yeah, the original or the addendum. That's the original.
Um,
Don't say
Okay, so I also should note that what's presented today also has the 2022 capital projection numbers in it as well.
highlighted 23rd.
So that sort of formulates how much reserves we'll have available.
Revised agenda,
Okay.
HTML.
So in finance, I'm almost over here.
You did show me the calendar, and then when I went the other way.
So we have the folder inserter that I'm proposing that we do a capital lease on. The current machine's about 9 years old, and we're having major issues and very inefficient in using staff time to stuff envelopes. So I'm proposing we do a capital lease on that, which will move that ongoing cost into an operating cost. However, it's presented in the capital for now because right now we own a folder inserter, and I'm proposing that we go to a lease instead, as we do with the postage machine and the copier. There's a computer replacement, and I've proposed investigation into a financial system replacement for, I think I would use more than 50,000 in there, coming modernization, as well as investigating potential budget software at 50,000. Those are placeholders. I haven't actually got quotes or anything on how much that's going to cost. We just put it in there as a discussion point and be funded out of modernization if approved. And that was the only, and then the ongoing replacement of computers in finance, and that's finance capital. Summary.
Any questions on finance? Jason?
So that financial system, that's just a computer system, basically?
Right now we use Keystone, and it's got different modules and stuff, but it can import and export, but it's all manual. And there's lots of modules that are, it does what we need it to do, but it just doesn't do more. And as we grow and we're getting more volume and we want to more instantaneous reporting, and if I'm wondering whether or not there's a system there that public can actually go in and see their account in more of a real time, right now, it could be days before something gets posted on the account. Like, we'll get someone mailing a check and saying, well, did you receive our check? Well, I don't know yet, because it hasn't been received and posted and taken to the bank yet. So and other departments are exploring things, so, and if they ever go with a solution that basically nothing automatically integrates with Keystone, it's all manual, so it's, that's why I want to explore other options to see if there is another option that's a little more useful for us, especially with the modernization funds, and that's what the modernization funds are for.
Is there a software standard that other municipalities use or all municipalities tend to gravitate to?
I don't think there's a standard. There's various systems like Atom and iCity and Assist and Keystone and Town Suite. So one software I'm looking at right now is Town Suite. It seems fairly robust, but I don't know what the cost for us will be yet. We're still working with that with the vendor.
Okay, thank you.
Point of privilege, we just want to check to make sure Joan can hear, because it did ring and then,
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me, Joan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm listening.
That's okay,
Good.
I just want to make
Thanks,
sure.
Joan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so any further questions on finance? Go ahead, Martin, and then Monty.
Well, you mentioned inquiries from the public. How many do you get over the course of the year? Like,
Well, right now we don't really track it formally. Like we just we don't write it down. So we just get a lot of calls in and people asking for the balance of their account and how much I owe and how do I pay you. And if we had a different system, then potentially they could look that up themselves as opposed to contacting staff. And then as well as, I think the key thing is actually for getting the bills posted and the payments posted so people know in closer to real time than it is today.
okay. So basically you're being more efficient and it'll free your staff up in time too.
Yes, because right now, like for example, the budget, for example, is now with all these Excel schedules and it's challenging to make sure it all balances, whereas if we had the financial system with the budget software, then people could go in and just key in their own budget and it's just there. And reports they can run their own reports a little easier, because the current system can run reports, it's just that it's not as user-friendly as a newspaper document would be, because we've had Keystone since day one. So, and I'm not saying it's not a good system and meet our needs today, but I think there's probably better systems out there, and I'd like to explore it.
Okay. Veronica?
So just with regards to the services that would be available through this financial system, would it be primarily for property taxes, or would it also be for other financial, like water bill, and would it just be particular to?
For taxes and water bill, and anybody with an account with us, go in and look at their account.
Can it extend over to other services that we provide? I'm not sure, like, for example, recreation, like, I'm just wondering, would it just be primarily for water billing and property taxes, or could it, depending on the, because you said robust system, is there one that you?
I'm
Yeah.
anticipating investigating a more robust system, so like people could go in and book facilities and book and we're getting more into programs now, and we never had programming in the past, so, and I've been told that the current system has a program module to it, but I think the last time it was looked at for potential use was 20 years ago when we didn't have programming. So it's just that if we go to a new system, I want it to be robust and meet everybody's needs. And which is why I'm sort of presenting in there is for planning purposes. And we'll come back to council for final approval once staff investigates it a little more. I just wanted to get it in the budget, so basically give staff direction to explore that option.
Fair. Barb?
thank you. Liam, you mentioned that a lot of the data entry for budgeting and other systems, manual. You are creating reports or importing, exporting, but it's a manual system, and you do a great job. Would this eliminate that user error potential? Like if your data keying in a number, and you don't know yet because you don't know what system you'd be going with, but you anticipate that by going with a more robust system, entering the data would then populate everything else. It would free up a lot of your time. To Monica's question about programming and your comment about it being more user-friendly and residents would be able to go in and see their accounts or pay for their programming. Right now, I believe if they pay by credit card, there's a fee. If this was a robust system and we were freeing up the staff's involvement in processing anything, would some of that be savings to the taxpayer, potentially?
For making payments?
Right.
I guess it depends on how we set it up. Right now, we only recently started accepting credit card because there's been people asking for it. And right now, the user pays the fee to do that. Because the reality is if someone pays a $10,000 property tax bill, then we'd rather they pay the financial cost of that than the township.
Right.
So I don't know if from a payment perspective if it'll present a savings, but it'll definitely provide the customer, resident, more efficiencies and speed, I guess, in knowing what the balance is, because they can go and investigate it themselves.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on the finance? Nope. Liam? I guess clerk's department is next.
Okay. Clerks.
Are you gonna, sorry, Liam, do you want to go over them or?
Well, I think the department heads are probably more suited to go through their areas.
Give me a second. So for the clerk's department, sorry, I just gotta find it. All I have in here is an additional laptop for 2023. And that's it for 2023.
Okay, any questions on the clerk's department? Nope, not seeing any. Move on. So, go ahead, Martin.
Lindsay, 3,000, is that an average cost for a computer and laptop? I have no idea.
Yeah, maybe I'll put that to Kayla actually. Yeah, if you don't mind.
So the cost of technology has increased significantly over COVID. Not just that, but the supply has been hard to get our hands on sometimes. So we found that $3,000 is a realistic number for 2023, and that includes the labor that we pay our provider to set up, transition all the files over, get it set up on our network. It includes everything. So it does seem a little bit high. I know you can look online and see a $1,000 laptop, but we are going with like business quality laptops, plus we pay for labor to get it all set up.
Okay, it's a good point.
Software.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Moving on to council. I don't know if the clerk wants to take that one as well. Or Liam?
Let's do that.
Yeah, so just contributions to reserve for replacement laptops.
Yeah, the big expenditure was this year.
Yeah,
too,
yeah, exactly.
For the transition
Yeah.
to council.
Yeah.
Bart?
A quick question with regard to elections. Depending on what council decides or what you recommend for the 2026 election, the potential for a lease of a tabulator or other equipment, would that come out of operational then? Or should that be part of the council 2026?
I'll take that.
I was gonna say, yeah.
That's an operating cost, so
Yeah.
it's not capital. So that's,
Unless
today we're
we
just
were to-
presenting capital. So
Okay,
the
so-
election, running the election costs is a special operating project.
Okay,
that can
thanks.
show up in the operating budget.
So you're doing it through a reserve contribution? Because we always put a reserve.
Yes, in the
okay,
operating
in the
budget,
operating
we
side.
put away, I think it's
$10,000 a year.
$10,000 for 3 years, and then in the fourth year, we take out the 30,000 and spend 40,000 on the election. That's approximately what
Yeah.
the operating budget will have.
Okay. Good. Moving on. Administration.
Liam has-
I don't think that's.
Kayla, do you want to comment on on that? It's technology for computers and flooring?
Yes. So the technology for computers, I think we're going to knock this down a bit. We were originally anticipating that we had to replace some of our more major equipment that, our servers and that kind of thing, but in speaking with our technology company, they believe that we can budget that for 2024. So that will come down a bit. So what would be left would be replacement laptop for the HR coordinator and the new CAO. And then the office flooring. This is something that had come up during our health and safety inspections. Our flooring in the office is currently carpet, and it has a lot of rips and tears, and it's starting to roll up, so it's causing tripping hazards. We did try and look at it to see if we can find some quick fixes, but we believe that the only way to really fix it is to replace the flooring, and we replace it with more of like a hard floor that's easier to clean for health and safety reasons as well. So these were quotes that we received from somebody in order to come up with a number.
Good. Any questions on admin? Martin?
Yeah, Caleb, because it's health and safety, is there a timeline that you have to get it done? Like the county comes in and looks at stuff like that, right? So there's
They look at accessibility.
Oh,
It didn't
the
really,
access-
I don't know if it came up in our accessibility report at all, no. So we do have 21 days to respond to the health and safety concern, which we've done and said that we will bring it up as a budget item. So as far as that goes, we're okay, but we should respond to it in 2023 by fixing the issue.
Okay.
I just have a question.
Monica, go ahead. Yeah.
And when was is this the first time this kind of replacement will happen into flooring since, it will be like.
In that office area, I believe.
So it has not been done before?
The last time was when we added to the back, there was carpet put down at amalgamation time, so it's over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It doesn't owe us anything.
I can do that. Yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
I just want to comment, the discussion about consolidating into like a technology department. So right now in today's budget, there's computer, finance, computer, clerks, and computer in other areas and some here. And Caleb mentioned about knocking down 12,000, but I think it's, in the next version, maybe might more consolidation into here as opposed to having the computers in clerks and financing, et cetera. That way all technology be in one spot. And we create an operating department as well, with the discussion.
Just to put that in perspective, so when a bill comes in from Infinity, who service or supports our IT work, Liam goes, or someone from his department, divides all that bill out into each department. Like, what a waste of time.
Yeah.
The taxpayer don't care how we pay it. Just let's pay it from one bucket of IT, and we can manage it and know what the whole organization is paying for IT.
But the flip side of that coin is you're not getting a true picture of what each department's costing if you do that way.
It's all,
I mean, if
it's
you're-
all,
if-
yeah, but it's all relative.
I know it's
Okay,
relative,
so
but-
his plow up, plow down, he's gonna pay for. This is for the computer on the desks of the phones, we can easily divide that out. But, the cost of dividing it out just isn't worth it. We're better to take the budget, if you wanna go to real costing, is divided out on a percent basis at the end of the year. Rather than, I'm just talking about one bill. How many bills are there? There's like multiple suppliers you have to divide out around to each department. So there's easier ways to do it if you want to get closer to estimate rather than reality.
Well, taken to an extreme, we could have one budget,
Sure.
right?
But that lacks
One
direction.
bucket.
That lacks direction from the standpoint of, allocating to roads versus recreation, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
This is just more, we used to spend peanuts in IT. Now we're spending a lot of money because of these people that want to infiltrate our systems and the cyber threat stuff, and so it's a big deal.
All right, any other questions on admin? Okay, not seeing any, we'll move on to public health. I don't see anything in there, which
Nothing in
is,
public health for capital. Nothing in, planning has the computers, and a new laptop for a junior planner. That's
Barb?
Public health, though, would that not require anything for the new medical center, do we have any capital invested in that transaction?
The only thing we're contributing is the land. And we're working with them. They wanted to use Triton, so we help support them, but it's just at a staff level. There's no financial commitment other than the land.
And then any financial costs related to that medical center, if there are any, would be an operating cost contributing to the project. It wouldn't be our capital.
Question.
Okay, yeah.
If we wanted to, I'm not sure if this is part of this, so forgive me, but if we wanted to bring like diagnostic imaging or blood tests closer in our area, like Dundalk and Hopeville, is that part of this, or is it something totally different for?
That would be
I think
more.
Dave's might be
That
better
would be
to
more
answer.
foundation type things, like working with the hospital or Southeast Grey Community Health Center. Like, let's say that's something you wanted in the new medical center. It would be a matter of them fundraising and or going to public health or the Ministry of Health to get that funding. And I'm not sure. I think some of that has to be local fundraising, but that's not in our wheelhouse at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's just some like constituents were asking, like, senior people, like they have to travel so far to get blood tests
Yeah.
and things like that. I was wondering if we have current infrastructure in our, like the medical center we're discussing, is that the one in our area? or-
Yes, that's the one in Dundas.
Oh, the new one?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
So,
what they
so
have.
to put it in perspective, because that's a really good question, I think I know where you're going. What we put in this budget in previous years is that Mount Forest Hospital, I think, did some adjustments, and maybe it was, I'm not sure what departments all, but I know emergency was rebuilt and some other departments. And they came to us and wanted a contribution. And we contribute to them over an X number of years. Markdale Hospital was another one. So we might put in here over 10 years, $250,000 or $500,000. So we'd break that into 10 payments or 5 payments or whatever. That's what we budget in here. We don't get into what they're going to use the money for. They come to us asking for money.
So I'd just like to clarify that. The township itself has no responsibility for public health at all. However, the township has an interest in the public health services in the community. So there is no capital for public health, and what Dave's talking about is on the operating side, where we'll contribute to the diagnostic equipment or construction at a hospital. That's all an operating contribution, so it's not part of capital.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Good question. Barb?
Maybe I'll just finish off with that too. It's important to note that it's not, Liam said we don't deal with public health. Just be careful, any of these things, not yet. We didn't think we were in housing, but we seem to be now.
Yes.
But I don't see this one changing, but just because the rules or the past is the way it's been, you'll be surprised in the future, because downloading seems to be ongoing and continuous in different forms from the upper tiers.
And that's why I said we're not responsible for it. However, we are participating in the discussion because we want to influence what is happening in that area for the betterment of our community.
I like Liam's description. We don't have a responsibility, but we do have an interest.
Yes.
Barb, you had a question?
For the new members who weren't involved in the conversation about bringing a medical center to Dundalk, maybe a future discussion, maybe not for the budget, but how that evolved and who the Southeast Grey Community Health Center would be putting in those services, blood work, but whether or not they are a walk-in life lab would be not, as Dave calls it, our wheelhouse. And to Dave's point, the province provides the capital to build the hospital. What goes inside it, the bed, the diagnostic imaging, the staffing, that is all done through fundraising through the hospital foundation.
Very good, thank you.
Well, I want to qualify that. There's rules that the Ministry of Health have. So there's capital branch and there's operating. Capital branch will pay for certain things. But like you said, if there's some special diagnostic imaging that's not on their map and we want it, so we might have to get involved there as a local fundraising. But again, the hospital would take that on. Usually operating funds come from another part of Ministry of Health, And right now, that's through the LIMS, which are being disbanded eventually, but that will gonna get taken over by the family health teams. So as long as they're mandated to deliver the service, they'll deliver the service. When it comes to, you're gonna see maybe later on, there's programming that they do, and they come to us for that kind of support to, more clinics on how to English as a second language or how to eat more healthy kind of stuff. But there's different programs they deliver, and that's on more us. But and the other thing that you kind of, there's a bunch of stuff you had in there. Don't be afraid to bring those things to the table here, that somebody wants a diagnostic imaging type or something, some other service. I think we're the springboard to take that to Southeast Grey Community Health Center as our service provider in the area.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's the way to do it, because you do have a say, and we can leverage that. And the worst thing they can say is no, but never stop asking.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to building. Yep.
So sorry.
Just before, sorry, there's things pop into the
Well, we're not going to solve healthcare today, but go
No,
ahead.
but it would be a good idea to have Alec Hector from Southeast Grey come and speak to council
Absolutely.
in the new year to just tell them about the services and programs. And
That'd be
I
great.
think that would, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, 2023 capital budget. Again, I wish to replace the HEV electric car. It is only 5 years old. Sorry, it is only 5 years old, which is 2 years less than our replacement usually. But being that it's an electric vehicle and it's off warranty in at the 5-year mark. And we haven't had too many problems with it, but it's just something that worries me a little bit about the cost of fixing if things go wrong. So, and it's not 4-wheel drive, it's low to the ground. It has a few drawbacks, so I'm thinking I'd like to replace it. It also, because we started the building department in 2018 and it came in semi-large, we bought 2 in 2018, so I'm trying to alternate that I'm not buying 2 every so many years. I'm getting it down to one. So that's a cost of, I have in here for $50,000, which we managed to get our latest 2022 vehicles for a little less than that. Replace the 2 laptops that are older. I have one that's extremely old and causing me grief. And there's another one. And then I would like to purchase a basic camera for the new drone we have so that we're not flying with the heat sensitive one, which is extremely expensive compared to this one.
Okay, thank you. It's rather shocking you want to sell the electric car.
Oh,
Tough crowd.
I appreciate it.
Tough crowd. Barb, go ahead.
To the electric car, it is a hybrid electric, right? It still takes fuel?
Yes.
Because I can't imagine that an electric vehicle would get you from one end of the township to another without having to charge it.
The electric car is a plug-in electric and a fuel vehicle. So it drives on its electricity first, and then it'll switch to the motor and drive, and as you're driving it recharges, and it's doing quite well. I have about a 4.8 miles per gallon, or liters per 100, sorry. I'm the fashion guy, but it is liters per 100 return on it, so it's doing quite well. But our new vehicles that we purchased this year are hybrid. They're not plug-in, but they're hybrid with gas and electric backup that charges as you're driving, and they're running around 6. So it's not that great a savings compared to a 4-wheel drive vehicle and a front-wheel drive or a 2-wheel drive vehicle.
Thank you.
Martin?
If you get rid of it, you're gonna put it on the government site, or is it a good resale value to it?
I will discuss that with our treasurer, the best way to get the money for the truck, but at this time, that's another reason why I'm thinking moving it on, is it's got some resale value at this time. The kilometers are not extremely high on it. The average kilometers of about 20,000 a year, so I'm hoping to get some return, especially with the price of used vehicles have went up dramatically compared to what we purchased it for.
Just to educate, on the procurement policy has, or the disposal of asset policies has various methods for disposal that when we go to dispose of something, we investigate the best way to dispose it to get the most money for it. So that's a bunch of time, we're not gonna say how we're disposing of it. It's when we go to dispose of it, we'll figure out is Gov Deals the best versus trading in whatever we get the best value at that time.
Yeah, traded with a dealer. Okay, cool.
Monica?
Thank you. So I just, like, from whatever knowledge I have about electric vehicles, I found that replacement batteries can be very expensive. So I'm not sure if this is the case, but would there be a replacement for another electric, or were you thinking, like, what type of vehicle, like, were you thinking to get next?
At this current time, I would request quotes on hybrids again.
Okay.
Whether it would be total, can't imagine a total electric coming in our budget. But technology is changing, and you never can tell. I understand these new Teslas, which I would love to be driving around the community. That would really give people a great impression about the building department. I understand they will go up to about 800 kilometers on a battery charge, but I think they're quite out of our budget for purchase moves. So it'll be something realistic, hopefully within the 50,000, most likely more, because I will request the four-wheel drive in my quote. So it will limit it to what it is.
Yeah, it's just that I'm not sure if anyone heard, but some people got a electric vehicle hybrid, and then 3 or 4 years down the road, they had to pay almost a lot of money for the. I guess I'm just raising it as a kind of thing to consider. I know we're in a new world now.
That's why I'm seriously thinking about trading this thing in before the 7-year time, because the battery has been good on it. I haven't had problems. It still charges well. I'm still getting approximately 30 kilometers before the motor comes on, depending on how I drive and the terrain I drive. But approximately.
I drive faster than Tesla too, so insurance drives it might be better to drive.
Point of privilege. I couldn't hear you what you said.
Oh, sorry, I was just making a rhetorical statement, Barb, that if you drove a Tesla, you would be driving too fast. It's good to get an SUV.
And just to add to the four-wheel drive, I'm not that great on understanding vehicles. My husband would definitely say yes. I can't believe you're driving anything but a four-wheel, especially up here, I guess, for snow and being so low to the ground and all of that. So, yeah, these are good considerations.
The current vehicle, we plan our daily trips very well.
Good. Dave, did you have something?
Just to challenge that, I know Bev likes four-wheel drives and higher vehicles, but we do have a lot of inspections, and I would say more than 50% of our inspections are likely in Dundalk, so we don't always, need, I don't think, a vehicle of that type. The other thing too is we did take that thing to Quebec City to a conference just to see how it performed, and it was very, very efficient. So we need to have our lens on climate change for all our decisions going forward, because this is it's a serious issue, and so whenever we can buy, we need to think about those things.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to challenge Dave back on that and state that even though I'm going to Dundalk, I'm going to construction sites. I'm not going to roads that are necessarily cleaned as well as your public roads. That's what I'm finding some days in Flato when I arrive. They don't necessarily clean the streets for vehicles. They clean them to a bare minimum. In the construction areas, in the places that are occupied, yes, they clean. The other areas, they're using large equipment, four-wheel drive backhoes.
Are the roads paved that you're driving on?
Yes, most of
Okay,
them
but
are.
I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to get into a debate, but I think,
We're in the middle of it now. So
well,
we might as well
but I drive the subdivision too to inspect stuff, and they're very drivable. So
I suspect four-wheel drive won't add a lot of cost to it.
no, I'm not debating four-wheel drive, but I'm debating. I think cars are a bit more efficient, and maybe there's other places we can use cars too.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions? on roads, or building, or planning rather. Go ahead, Jason.
Just wonder on that camera there for the
Sorry.
drone, are we using the drone a lot now, or? Because I know before we were.
I have used it once, and I believe the fire department has used it a couple of times, yes, it is being used. Now that we have our license, that was the major drawback. Getting our license due to
Thank you.
COVID. It was difficult to get, but we did manage to get it all last spring. And we have, I think there's 10 individuals in the township now that are licensed to fly the drone.
Good.
Bev, do you want to qualify that though, please? You're talking building, you're not talking bylaw. Because bylaw could use this drone as
Bylaw
well.
could use it as well, yes.
Like,
Yeah, no,
that, like, I think you're just referring once you've used it for building.
Yeah.
You know, there's been incidents where, I think it was up in Georgian Bluff, somebody got stabbed, so the big thing now is to heck with it. Why go on the property? We'll survey the property with the drone and see what it looks like.
Jim?
So the other camera that we currently have with the heat sensor, that's mainly fire department use, is it, or?
Yeah, absolutely, sir. We used it for that.
Okay.
We used it twice in the last month and a half.
And price difference between the two is pretty significant.
I paid $8,000 for the heat.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on, property standards. I don't know who's taking that, Lee. Oh, Beth.
Yeah, that would be me. Let me just switch here. Property standards, hey, look at that. I'm not gonna spend very much of a hard-earned money. I'm looking at purchasing 4 light bars for the top of the vehicles at a cost of about $300 each. So that would come out $1,200 for the 4 vehicles. For safety reasons, when we're going over the side of the road, giving somebody a parking ticket or that kind of thing, just to be more visible.
Okay. No questions on that one. Moving on to industrial land. Liam?
Gary or Dave?
Jim or Dave?
Yeah.
Point.
Who wants to take a run at that one?
Nobody's speaking space, I have to. No, it's good. So in 2023, we're looking at phase 1 of the Highway 10 bypass, or Eco Park phase 2, and looking at the sewage pumping station as part of that project. And then in 2024, that work would be completed, so it'll be a 2-year project.
But most of that project, the bypass road, is coming out of reserves, correct?
The bypass road will be split with Flato in that Flato Green project. And yes, mostly reserves and industrial park sales, as well as the phase 2 sewage pumping station will be a DC item.
Right.
Now, with Bill 23, we're going to have some more skin in the game than we were hoping to.
But as of now, this is how it's gonna be funded.
Correct. This one, the pumping station on Highway 10 is already in the DC, because this part of the project would service everything north of this property and into Melanchthon whenever, you know, the annexation starts happening.
Right. Okay. Monica, and then Martin.
So again, I'm not sure if this is relevant, but is this gonna cause a lot of smell?
No.
Okay.
So you may not even know it, but there's one really close to you
Yes.
in the new subdivision. It's a beautiful looking brick building. It's rather square.
Okay.
And what happens is all the pipes underground that comes from the sewage system goes into that, and it's a big, huge, likely, well, not, it's likely from here to Bev round, likely a bit smaller than that, and it dumps into this big hole in the ground, and then they pump it and put it back, and they shove it instead of letting it flow. It's shoved out, and then gravity flows eventually to the system. So if you can't smell your pipes out on the street now, you're not going to smell these.
Okay. I just remember when I was door knocking, I got into this conversation with one of the constituents, and he started giving me this big map of everything. And he was saying that there was, I'm not sure if this is the right time to mention if this is relevant to this, but because we're bringing in sewage from another city into ours, and that's causing a smell, and
Yeah.
and this is like,
That's-
like 3 or 4 people have, yeah. so I
That's
was like,
totally
I'm-
different.
Totally
That's
different,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
another project.
Another project, okay. I'll wait, maybe if we get to that. But thank you for that.
Martin?
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, Dave, the phase one, is that consulting and engineering costs, or is that actually putting? stuff-
Well, that's finishing the tendering process and selecting a vendor, and then starting some construction.
starting
I mean, there's
something.
survey work going on right now to lay the road and to lay the properties in place. So that's all part and parcel of it.
Okay,
And hopefully get constructing,
some out of it, yeah.
summer, late summer of this year, and then finish it in 2023 or 4.
Okay.
Jason?
So how is Flato paid? Do they give us a lump sum or are they paying us in?
Well, it will be, like, the contract will likely be set up in that there'll be progress payments. So let's say it
Right.
costs $5 million and there'll be 5 payments of $1 million it won't be those exact numbers,
Yeah.
but as they progress through the work and Triton will manage that, we'll just split those 2 bills right down the center.
So.
For the road, not the sewage pumping station.
No.
Yeah.
With the Highway 10 industrial access road, is that like, that's kind of the same as the bypass though?
It is.
Yeah.
You can call it
But, so they
phase
pay
2
for part
road.
of that at the access too, or is that all?
They'll pay for all the stuff related to the access onto Highway 10,
Okay.
turning lanes, all that sort of stuff. They'll partner with us.
That's what I thought.
What they won't pay is once we get off the Highway 10 property, we'll pay for the connection from there round to Eco Park
Right.
1.
Barb?
Just to follow up with Jason's question, and so our new members know, I thought that Flato was doing their half of the road through their MZO property, and then we pay for the other half of the road through to the Eco Park.
No, it's totally, we own some of the land and they own some of the land, and the agreement that you approved was 50-50 share of all that construction cost.
Martin?
No.
Oh, okay. Moving on to economic development. Terry?
Sure, mine's pretty easy. There was $10,000 in the budget for this year for the historic Southgate signs, and that's now being covered by a grant, so that has been removed. And that's about it. We did project that in 2026 a laptop would need to be replaced, but that remains to be seen.
Excellent. That one's easy so far anyway.
That was easy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Fire. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you. Mine won't be as easy.
It might be.
I guess at the end of the day, we'll find out.
There's a ladder truck in there somewhere.
Oh, and
You can't be. Not on my sheet. Anyway, thank you, sir. I'll get the 2 main ones at the end, but the bunker gear, that's a 10-year life cycle. We have to change them within a 10-year period, whether they're good or not. That's the standard. Fire hose, that's ongoing. Fire hose is usually good for 10 to 20 years. However, we have to test it annually, and then if piece of hose or the pump isn't functioning, then it has to be changed, and fire hose is really, really expensive. So that's why that's there. Pagers for the new recruits. And then the air bottle replacement, it's the same thing. They last about 15 years. They have to be hydrostatic tested to make sure that they don't explode, obviously. So that's why the chief has that in there as well, which is a good move. And then the last 2, the most important ones, and Liam spoke about it earlier, is the $267,350 to reserve for that tanker, and I'll explain the tanker in a minute. And then the half-ton pickup, that's to replace one that Public Works donated, I guess, 2 years ago, and it's well past its life cycle. It's 2-wheel drive, so that's why that's in there. When you see that number, that's to outfit the truck properly with emergency lighting. That's to a standard. Everything's to a standard today, as you can appreciate. So the thing with the pickups too, right now, unfortunately, we don't have a budget passed, but now is the time because they're trying to get rid of the 2022s because the 2023s are showing up. So we've been doing some checking. There's substantial savings right now for pickup trucks, which you couldn't get one 6 months ago. Now they seem to have an abundance on their lot, so one price we did check is $6,500 off the list price, so that's for a 2022 though. Back to the tanker, we're actually going to show how we can have a cost avoidance of $700,000. So right now we have a rescue truck. It's 18 years old. Its life expectancy is 15. We want to take this new tanker, which we'll receive in 2024. It's going to replace that tanker, or that rescue, so we'll never ask for a rescue again. So actually we're going to purchase one, so one for two. So the old tanker, the underwriters like going into reserve, so we'll keep it in the reserve as long as we can. But at the end of the day, we're going to have a cost avoidance of $700,000 because we're not going to come back looking for a rescue, which we should be looking at right now if it's a vintage. It's 18 years, 15 is the standard. So that's a positive note on that. I did make a note here. We have $600,000 for the tanker in 2024. That will definitely pose a price challenge. The manufacturer is saying right now they're about $500,000. I can't believe this, but this is what we were told yesterday. Inflation rate of 2 to 3% per month on fire trucks, and with the delivery for that truck 22 months from now at a minimum. It's crazy out there with fire trucks. So that's why I wanted to mention about the 600 could be a price challenge, obviously in 2024. And I'll take any questions.
Monica?
I just had a quick question just about the regulations for expiry for the trucks.
Yes.
Like, how long do they have to be replaced?
Well, there's a guideline in that National Fire Protection Association standard that we go by, that guide or standard, and it's every 15 years. So a pumper, tanker, aerial ladder, rescue, 15 years. They want them replaced, and then we can get into a whole discussion, I think as we did last week with Dave about underwriters. And just to remind everybody, that 40% of your rating involves equipment and training and whatnot. So it's a very large amount compared to, say, communications, which is 10% of your rating. So it's really important to have trucks. They're expensive, but they will and last a long time. For example, when we have here the tanker trunk we have now, it will go into reserve, and then they don't really bother us about a truck in reserve. So as long as it's working and there's not a lot of maintenance, we can keep it going. So, and that's what I think I mentioned last time. I did it with an aerial ladder when I was in Kawartha Lakes. We kept that to age 25 years, but it had to go at really 15. You stretched it out.
Like, so if the truck can go longer than 15 years, is that allowed to happen, or would the regulations say no?
It's allowed to happen, but when the it's called Fire Underwriter Survey comes in and does a survey of your municipality, they'll catch that, and that will affect your scoring. And the scoring is a very complicated process, but it's on a score from 1 to 10, and 1 in this case is the best. You might get a 9 just for fire equipment, which isn't good, and so then that goes out to the insurance companies, and then they establish the rates for your municipality. Especially in commercial, industrial, mercantile, not so much residential, but more into commercial, mercantile, if you had a hospital, that kind of thing.
Oh, thank you.
Barb?
So the new tanker, although it's not in the 2023 budget, we're ordering it in 2023 so that we get it in 2024?
That would be the hope.
That would be the hope, so that hopefully when we order it, they honor that price when they deliver? Or are you saying that we're gonna order a truck, they're gonna give us a quote of $500,000, but they're gonna charge us they're gonna charge us inflation until it's delivered?
It's, all I can say is it's a terrible situation right now. They will not guarantee the price.
Wow.
And we haven't just spoken to one. I think we've spoken to everyone that we talked to, and they will not guarantee a price. So, we were pretty curt with them. How do you expect us to go to a council and ask for approval for a capital budget of $600,000 and you can't guarantee the price?
So not even an upside?
No,
They'll just shrug their shoulders and say, not our problem.
right, because there's such demand for them, they could care less. I know that's being kind of, but that's the fact, they don't care. If Dundalk doesn't want one, I'll sell one to Windsor.
Never mind coming to council, how do we explain that off
Well-
to the taxpayer who's ultimately paying the price?
And Barb, that's why I mentioned, that price will be a challenge in 2024. We can hope, but the price of metal changes, and then you get into the computer chips and everything else, as we all know what's going on in the world, and it affects fire trucks as well. So I've never been in this situation in my career. I don't understand it. Usually there's a price, that's the price, we agree, and life goes on.
I read an article the other day about a gentleman, I think he was in Western Canada somewhere, he'd ordered a new car for, I don't know, 8-month delivery or something like that. The car came in, and the dealer said, yeah, I need another $2,500. And the guy said, I had a bill of sale here. The dealer shrugged his shoulders and said, too bad, you want the car, it's $2,500 more. He had to pay it if he wanted the car. It's a different world out there, like Dave said now.
So
Crazy.
would the price come down if the price of steel went down?
Dave, if you can show me something that comes down.
Anyway, that's the problem. They want more, they won't take less, I guess, so.
I mean, we would certainly try that.
Well,
to
but
firm
I
up
just,
the price.
I say that for facetious.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But we would definitely go into this trying to firm up a price with somebody,
Yeah.
obviously.
Martin?
So to that point then, with the demand, there must be only a couple of companies that make them then, and that's why they can put you over a barrel?
There's such a demand for fire trucks. They're made everywhere from New Brunswick right through to Western Canada down into the United States. So there's lots of fire truck manufacturers, but there seems to be such a demand, and then there's a backlog.
Yeah.
And I know we don't want to talk about it today, but the aerial ladder, that'll take 3 years to get here. If you ordered it today, it'd be 3 years.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
We need to talk value, not cost, right?
Right.
But what's the value if we maintain this old equipment and then put the cost of insurance onto other people? So,
Yeah.
You can't win.
Anyway, it is what it is for now. Any other questions on fire? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to recreation. Kevin's not here. Dave, you wanna?
yeah,
or
we'll
Liam?
take a run at recreation. I just gotta catch up on the screen. So, sorry, yes, you're right. I gotta keep rolling. Here we are. Okay, so the first item is park development and amenities. That's just a standard $30,000 to develop the parks that get dedicated or improve the parks that we have. Trail development, he's got $10,000 in there for developing trails around within the new subdivisions and so on, and developing the trails we do have. With the new subdivisions, we're looking at putting trails around the stormwater ponds and in the non-developed areas, and tying parks and community together. Recreation, no, the next one is McIntyre Building accessibility. So there's a project there to improve accessibility for $10,000. Sports field development, again, that's a DC item, but there's $450,000 there for working at developing parks that are going to come at us as related to soccer fields and so on. 3/4 ton pickup replacement, he's looking at a used one there for $50,000. And the dump trailer, just to replace the old flatbed trailer they have now with a trailer that would provide more capabilities, not only hauling equipment, but being able to transport brush or stone or topsoil or whatever to the project sites that they work on, to the parks.
Barb?
Through you, Dave, just to explain the McIntyre Building, that for that $10,000 from reserves is the estate donation, correct, for the Frank Mack?
I believe it is. That's, Kevin was working with the cash on that.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
And it says here $20,000 for maintenance equipment. It doesn't say what kind of equipment. Is that a new lawnmower? Is that,
It's adding to, so I would anticipate, I don't know specifically, but I anticipate it's for growth, so it's likely adding either lawnmower or something else to the fleet.
and I guess my other question is the trail system around the stormwater management ponds and this passive recreation that we're looking to develop. Are we making the paths, are we going to be maintaining those with sidewalk clearing or path clearing in the winter? Or
No.
is that just,
No.
it's only seasonal?
If anything, we might look at grooming them for cross-country, but they would not be open, like snow blowing or anything like that.
Okay.
Jim?
Just on the subject of the trails, I had a call yesterday from the Dufferin, whatever their title is, the Snow Drifters, I think, or whatever, the snowmobile club that way, expressing a bit of concern with the loss of connection for trail in Dundalk with the Flato subdivision development. He did comment that Flato's been very good to work with, but he's proposing, could they use a trail for the vacant property on Highway 10 that we own? I said maybe currently for this year possibly, but going forward, that is getting developed and roadways coming in. So that's something I said that, you know, we should be looking at to try and keep something for a connection some way. But I asked him to give me an email so I can discuss it further with department heads and come up with a plan for the future, how to maybe address their concerns. But anyhow, I didn't promise them about our lands for this year, but again, I said it would be addressed with his email for discussion. Maybe that's a possibility for this year.
Barb?
So to that point, the snowmobile club does bring commerce to the businesses in downtown Dundalk and has done for years. So without that connection, they can't get fuel, they can't get into Main Street.
Well, they can get along the rail trail, it's all accessible for snowmobiling, but yeah, once you get into town, you get on our streets, they're still allowed on our streets, not the sidewalks,
Right.
not in the public areas, but yeah, when you get out towards that way, it gets a little bit difficult for them to get into, especially when the roads are cleared off too and everything. But,
They're trying to get to
there's
Timmy.
still, you know, in society, lands that could be utilized somewhat, but it is something that is losing its space too, like the deer movement with all the fields being cleared out and everything, you know, those corridors are getting gone.
So much for our natural heritage.
Any other questions for Rick? Oh, Jason, go ahead.
It's just like, I kind of brought it up last week, like the parkland development and the trail connections and stuff. Is there any way we can't be pushing the developer to do more of that stuff, pay for it? I mean, I don't know, it seems
Yeah.
pretty, I know it's only 40,000, but
Yeah,
it seems
so-
like they're coming in and,
Yeah.
you know, say, hey, if you want this, we want some parks, we want this done, we want this done. I don't know.
So we have pushed them to provide water service to the parks and different things, but you know, legislatively, they don't have to. You know, we
No, I
ask them,
understand, but
and
we don't
I
have to
think
give them
council can keep asking for that, and you know, why not? I think we need to find other creative ways. We need to have discussions. If Bill 23 comes into place, how are we going to create or replace that? I'm going to say it's about 20% loss because of DCs and other things, and they're actually cutting back on our parkland dedication capabilities and all that sort of thing. But do we come up with? They need to pay $2,000 as a per house for some reason. I don't know what that might be, but there's got to be other ways to do this because I don't see that taxpayers having the palatability of taking on, and I shared this with some people the other day, is if you've seen the numbers, we collected about $5 million so far, and it could get to 6 by the end of the year. So let's say we've collected $5 million in 2022. If we ratchet that forward, Bill 23 comes into effect, where is the taxpayers going to come up with that $1 million? Because instead of $5 million, we're going to have a 20% cut in DC collection, so we're going to collect $4 million. We still need that other $1 million. There's only one place for it to come from, and that's the taxpayer. So that's, hopefully Bill 23 doesn't come into force and effect as aggressively as it is, but I think there needs to be creative ways to, instead of $1,000 to do a subdivision agreement, maybe it's $5,000. It's $5,000 to pre-servicing and definitely, it's, anyway, you can't, I don't think you can put development on the backs of taxpayers, but that's my opinion. Our budget isn't that big.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
like
kind
when
of
we're
what we-
when we're collecting $8 million from taxpayers, maybe 9, you know, depending on what we look like this year. I think that's about right, isn't it?
That's what I mean.
$1 million bucks, a lot to add to that.
It is, that's the thing. We're talking about closing the Jamora facility down, but we're gonna put a park in there in the new subdivision where the current residents probably aren't gonna use that.
Right.
And I understand we're benefiting from the development, but developers also benefiting, so I just feel we gotta push back a bit more and say, hey, this is, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. It's only
Well,
40,000,
no, I
but
think
40,000 out of 9 million is still a good chunk.
It is, and I think, I mean, this is a very broad discussion.
Yeah.
You know, growth can be very positive. It can create more taxation so that we put the burden across more people. But we got this housing problem, we've got many problems. And I think we have to leverage property that we're not using to create housing and create more tax base. But budgeting is going to get harder and harder in the coming years if we keep going the way we're going.
Oh, for sure.
Barb?
And I think too, you know, passing that $1 million on to the taxpayer, it'd be hard pressed to get support from a housing project here in rural Ontario where the development charges didn't go down, they went up, to support parkland or housing in Dundalk. It's, you know, the DCs got reduced on urban development, they went up on rural development, and now the province is saying, well, you can't collect 100% of the DCs to begin with. Yeah, that's a real challenge.
It's gonna get harder.
Yeah.
I just want to a couple more things. I want to qualify because the press is here. Is we used to have a counselor that used to do some cowboy math calculations. We all know who that is. That's what I'm doing right today. I don't have, you know, there's a lot of people still reporting on Bill 23. So that might be 15%, it might be 25%, but that's what we see right now. The other thing is, would you mind just reporting on, you got into snowmobile trails, would you mind just reporting on that water issue? And we're...
Yeah, again, we've had resident concerns of the snowmobile trail. It used to go right through Watra Road for a connection there off of 26 to 49. We've had discussions with them in the last 2 years probably about rerouting that, which the Snowmobile Club has changed the signage and has done that, but the people who know the trail system still take that shortcut and want to do the road that way. Apparently it did not get updated with the new mapping for 2023 for the OFSCA or OFSC or the trail clubs. So we contacted them again. They're trying to do a revision. It may not roll out again, but there's also pushback too that a lot of these snowmobilers are actually coming from Watra themselves, from the residents there. And David mentioned about posting no snowmobiles. Well, that limits them on getting in and out too as well. But anyhow, who enforces it though? Like, you know, they have the trail warden system or whatever, but, you know, we get these calls more frequently lately, but bit of an issue, but.
The one thing that was good about that message though was the local trail people were really upset that the upper level, the Ontario group didn't fix the map properly this year. It just got missed. But my suggestion was, you know, do we pass a bylaw, put signs up and say local snowmobiles only? I mean, but because they'll just keep going there no matter what the map says because it's history. I know the residents are frustrated, but that may be a solution you have to reach out to.
What's the speed limit through that subdivision? 50?
Yeah.
Just with regards to the, I'm not sure if it's under the parkland development amenities, but it's the park that's at the Dundalk Fairgrounds and the one that's across from the McIntyre building, is that included in, like, those being renovated? Is that included in this cost?
These budgets would cover any upgrades we're doing. Like we're doing one at the pool right now, which is part of that Memorial Park at McIntyre building, and the building up top, the Lions Pavilion. But yeah, any upgrades to Pat Dale's Park. Now Pat Dale's Park, we lease we lease the land for $1 from them, from the fair board. But yeah, that's within this budget.
And do we have a timeline on when that renovation, because there's been a lot of people asking for it to be upgraded?
At the pool?
Yeah, the one at the pool, and then I think the one way in the back.
Yes, yes. So that's happening. The contractors are at it right now.
Great.
And the plan is to open the pool next spring,
The pool.
like in June.
And how about the actual park itself? Because it's a little bit dated.
Well, the playground equipment is very new.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yes,
Oh.
it's we just put down rubber tire crumb, and so it's very, you know, park friendly for kids, and it's new equipment. The ball diamond is used, the campground is used. We updated we got a new sports court. And the skateboard park too. I mean, it may not be to GTA standards, but it's pretty darn good for Dundalk.
Yeah.
And that's just my opinion. You know, maybe that's something council want to talk about, but I would say most of the infrastructure there is definitely less than 10 years old, except for the pool, and it's happening now. So we've invested a lot there. And a lot of the new playground equipment, even at Pat Dale's, has been replaced recently. But Kevin has stuff in here for, you know, visionary stuff like cricket, and who knows what else comes to town. But more soccer fields. We kind of had a kind of an upswing in soccer participation, and then we couldn't get coaches, so they all went to Markdale. I think with no more residents, that's going to come back. So he's projecting more soccer fields required and so on. But yeah,
Is there any parameters for like an outdoor skating rink? I'm not sure if that's.
Yeah, we've talked about that. I think that's maybe a 10-year horizon. But we got to worry about the rink we got.
Yeah.
I would say the rink we have is a ticking time bomb. The building looks great. It's solid. There's some pillar stuff we're working with the engineers to fix, but that's minor. But the pipes in the cement for making ice, the one in Grand Valley was replaced this year, and ours is the same age or vintage as that, and they had a failure, I understand. So, you know, we could have to work at that, and I think that's $500,000 or $1 million maybe. I'm just guessing, so it's too bad Kevin wasn't here, but that's questions you can for Kevin.
Barbara, I have one more question, but I know you had a question. Did you want to?
Go ahead. I mean, sorry, through you, so I'm fine. I can wait.
Oh, sorry, I should ask you.
Carry on.
So just back to what we were all discussing, when we look at the future phase of Flato, like how they have the maps up,
Yes.
where it has proposed parks, is it my understanding that the taxpayers are paying for that, or is it Flato?
So Flato have to provide parkland.
Okay.
Okay, they don't have to develop it into parkland.
Right.
But we have got them creating trails to connect, and we have them creating servicing to it and leveling it, or like Kevin's working with them to manicure it like we would want it to be, for to put in, whether it's soccer fields or whatever. But they're creating the parking lot areas for it too, as I understand.
Okay.
But he's working with the planners now on development concepts and so on that they'll bring back to council.
So just to Jason's point, I think it's very valid, like what he's saying
Yeah.
about kind of talking to Flado to help to cover. Because it was my understanding that they were taking care of everything, but
Yeah.
now hearing this.
And
it's
they don't have to. I mean,
Yeah.
Flado's very good to cooperate and do things that we ask, but there's a limit. And other developers, just plain and simple, won't do it.
Oh,
They'll only do what they have to do. For example, Flado give their residents water meters and garbage carts. We charge for them, they pay for it. Other developers don't do that. They make the resident pay for the water meter. Go ahead. Am I wrong?
No.
Good.
No,
Just checking.
No, I was just gonna comment that the week before last, we did a site walk through to look at acceptance for a couple late stages of the phase 2A and 3 or whichever. But while we were there, they were working on the parklands there and putting in the patios with interlocking stone, and they've got the open gazebo type things, so they've really done a lot to improve the setting around there, and it's quite impressive. So next year it'll be really looking good in the spring, I'm sure.
Good. Barb?
I have a couple, if I may, with regard to an outdoor rink, just to let you know that the Optimists here in Holstein, the volunteers create a beautiful outdoor rink and maintain it. There's shovels there. The community really comes together. When I came from the city many years ago, our community park in the development that I was in fundraised for playground equipment. And they had to match or they proposed to the council, we'll fundraise so much if, you'll match it. So when you come into a community where the taxpayer is paying for all this equipment and has to maintain it, oftentimes there needs to be a fundraising initiative to support it so that the people who are in that community who are going to use it are actually invested in it, as opposed to it being paid for by all taxpayers. So that was my one point about the outdoor rink, and it's free. It's behind the Optimist building.
very good.
The playgrounds, if I'm not mistaken, Kevin presented some concepts some time ago, or they had them playing in the arena about some passive recreation where he had some ideas for natural recreation on these trail systems. So you can go on the trail system and, there's a teeter-totter, or there's benches. And I'm not sure and maybe that's what you're talking about, Jim, the gazebos and the sitting areas, the patios where people can gather. And Dave, is there not a legal limit? There's something that prohibits us from getting or asking for too much.
Yeah, when it comes to parkland development, they are not really committed to do anything more than provide the camp or the parkland.
Isn't there something about bonusing that was eliminated or
Well,
something?
bonusing is a bit different. Bonusing is related to us benefiting. That's not really a fit for, and Liam might be able to explain this better than I, but there's, we can ask for as much as we want and see if they'll support us, like, connecting trails. I mean, Flado's always been that they want to build communities, not houses, and they've demonstrated that pretty well. I mean, Jim mentioned some stuff there to me that I wasn't aware of, and obviously Kevin keeps pushing the envelope and getting these things done. But I know, parking space and gazebo and that sort of thing has been on the discussions. But trails is a big part of it too. That connecting these trails together and making sure it's a walkable community. I'm not sure if I covered everything that you were
Thank
on
you.
there. But
Thank you.
Mark, did you have something?
Well, I was just wondering, there is a ratio of how many houses in the subdivision plan, right?
Well,
You're
there-
allowed so much parkland. According to,
And
like,
23,
10
and
houses
Bill
or-
23 changes this.
Yeah.
It's the size of the development, it's the value of the property when they purchase the land. Like, so it's a bit soft. Like, to me, you know, what's the value? There should be something tied to the number of homes in the development, but there is some calculations there that they do, the planners do, to figure this out. They don't have to give us parkland. They can say, we want to build houses on the same whole place. And then there's a calculation financially, they have to contribute dollars instead of parkland. And I think that's a good way for us, like, when we have parkland distributed all over the place and big chunks of it, we don't need to be cutting grass and burning fuel and climate change problems and all that sort of stuff. So we need to be careful that we consolidate our parks and make sure they're functional and deliver the service we need. But we haven't, I think there's enough land in Flato that we didn't need to do any financial contribution of parkland in lieu is what they call it. So Clint is a better guy to really explain that whole, how that parkland thing works from. But Bill 23 is pretty near cutting that in half, that they only need to do half of what they've done before, which isn't right.
You must have 23 written on the ceiling of your bedroom. And you dream about that all the time, do you?
Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
I know.
Everywhere you go.
Like, the planners are very frustrated.
Oh, I can tell that. Yep. Go ahead, Jason.
So over top of that, you say, well, we can ask for whatever we want. And I say, why not? But does the MZO affect that at all? Not like-
No,
that
no,
doesn't-
not at all. All the MZO does is speed up the front end process
Right, I
to
just
get
wondered if it had
to
a
get it
change.
ready for subdivision approval and development.
That
and so
has
on.
nothing to do with.
No, it just basically says, okay, here's farmland. The minister signs it, says, no, it's not farmland, it's residential,
Oh,
or it's
no, I-
commercial, or it's a mixture, or whatever. But yeah, that's all that does.
I thought so.
All right, good discussion. We're 25 minutes past the hour I said we were going to take before we took a break, so we're going to take a break. Let's come back at 10:30. Yeah, 10:30. Or thereabouts.
Nothing too crazy this year. I will just explain a little bit just for our members. We do have two budget lines for the library collection. So one of that is funded through our regular collection, which is $11,000. And then we also have $15,000, which is through DCs. If you have any more deeper questions, ask Liam.
That's it, no capital for library.
No capital for you. No capital for you.
I meant the DC
Everyone's
part,
at
for the
that hour.
DC. That's what I do. We are looking at two computer replacements. One is for staff, a staff computer for $3,000, and then a more basic desktop computer for our patrons. We do have one that's getting quite old. And then a little bit of increase for furniture this year because we have some patron furniture that's getting well worn and well used. It's over a decade old, so we just want to look at replacing some seating.
Very good. Any questions? Barb?
You're looking to replace two computers
Yes.
for only $5,000.
Yes. The patron computer will be a desktop and a little not as robust as the staff
Okay.
computer. So.
Thanks.
So basically, the budget is 3,000 for the staff, 2,000 for the patron computer.
Got it.
Okay.
Just a quick question, do you have tablets?
We just got given some tablets from the clerk's office, actually. I think, no, those were staff ones, not
No, they were the previous council ones, yeah.
council. And we do have a few older ones that we've been using for early learning purposes. These new ones we'll use just for people who maybe aren't typing anything, but just want to browse the internet, browse Facebook, whatever they're looking to do. So we'll loan those in-house only. And they will be barcoded so that people have to check them out for security purposes.
So just a quick question, like, because of, electronic waste and maintaining it, sometimes people, like, they'll use a computer, like they use their phones, they'll replace it every year or two. Would there be a possibility that, like, the library have to get brand new, or for example, if someone has like a 1-year-old brand new laptop that they're willing to give, would that be an option? I'm not sure if that's allowed or not, like.
I would have to talk to what our policy is on getting used. No, we do tend to, in the past, when more staff had desktops, we would sometimes get on staff laptops or desktop computers. We have started considering laptops as an option for patrons as well. So if it's a 5-year-old computer, but it's still doing pretty good for patron use, we might still use it. Most patrons are using it to type up documents, search the internet. So does it need to be robust? We do have a few newer ones for people who need to do Zoom or anything like that for quiet study.
Okay, it's just because even myself, like I have some like really good equipment and it'd be great for it to go to use in the town.
Even if it got used for when we're doing some of our tech courses, so we could have like a few extra devices just for when we're doing our adult tech courses, there's options there as well. Amazing for consideration.
There may be some,
Oh, go ahead.
to the point of, patrons donating equipment, that would be an IT security kind of virus cleaning. But I would imagine that the United Way, the Y, or the even the food bank may know of individuals in need that on a personal level. So I think there's opportunity there. I like the idea of having the iPads for in-house use, especially if somebody wants to go and sit in the casual seating area and read their book and they don't have a Kindle or something. Is that kind of what the library is thinking?
It's a little hard with the Libby app, which is our ebook app. Just because you have to sign in every time, so you would just be having to swipe all that information clean each time somebody signs in. It's not that it's impossible, it's just getting that set up every time somebody's using the iPad. But it's definitely something to consider, or for browsing. We have talked about some things for kids, like maybe putting Minecraft on the iPad so they're not using the computers, and the computers could be freed up for adults to use for typing purposes. So we've been working with our digital services person on sort of how we want to approach that for the coming year. As we sort of see our trends changing post-pandemic too, we're not getting as many kids coming in to play video games, but we're definitely seeing an increase of people coming in because they need to take an online course now because everything's online, or they need to do a Zoom meeting. So we're kind of shifting how we're doing everything as we see the trends come through.
And just to that point is, with the library, even coming from the GTA up to this area, it's really become like a multifaceted, dynamic place for a library in this traditional sense. And so there's almost even an idea of possible like a branding of it. Because it's really becoming a hub, I think, from both sides. So it's just really an important place in the years to come. So I think it's a really important thing to continue to develop that. And I don't know, this is just a point of it being just an encouragement or whatever you want to call it. That it's because you have the Youth Action Committee meeting there, you have a food bank that's being operated out of that place. Then you have, my daughter goes there, my son, and many people I speak to. So it's just just for a library, it's not just a library, it's really a community hub that's amazing. There's so many great things happening. So just want to add that.
That's what we're going for. It's a community hub.
I heard Lacey's going to offer square dancing.
We have done dancing.
I know.
It wasn't square dancing.
Any day now. Good. Barb?
I just wanted to follow up from a board perspective. I'll put that hat on for temporarily, but it was a conscious adaptability, and certainly the staff have been super creative in continuing to provide programming and resources through, a very challenging term, 3 years of, are we open or not open? And it has been I would say, I've been on the board for 8 years, and that is the mission and vision of the library. They have a strategic plan, and it is to be a welcoming oasis beyond reading. Yeah, and they've done a tremendous job, and I give staff all of the credit.
With square dancing.
With square
dancing. All right, any other questions? Dave?
I think Martin's got
Oh, Martin, sorry.
Lacey, furnishing, furniture, is that new shelving?
No, seating for the public.
Seating?
Yeah, we have a couple couches that are just, they're,
Getting warm?
yeah, getting well worn.
And that's a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, I just want to, sometimes we're not maybe taking enough forward looking into what the 10-year budget looks like, but in red in 2028, they've got expanding space. And that's easy to say, but there's some pitfalls that comes with that. So if that's going to happen in 2028, I think this term of council is going to have to look at where's the OPP going. So that is going to have to be some advanced planning, likely 3 or 4 years in advance of that, to find that space or construct it, or is it going to be, you know, where's it going to be? What's it going to look like? Does it need to be visible, or can we put it off the beaten path somewhere? But that's got to be a discussion, because that has to happen before the space is even available. And if that means also food bank, that's the number 2. Where's that going to go? So that needs to be something thought of in the next term if 2028 is the date.
Yep, true enough. Okay, Barb?
Just to that point, though, that those funds for expansion also includes expanding to other locations in our discussions. But you have in recreation a multi-use facility or a community center in the 10-year capital plan. And, you know, maybe we don't know what that looks like. Maybe that means having the library at where the sports center is, and that frees up that building for other, I'm not saying that's, but we need to be open to every possibility.
Yeah.
And if expanding the library into a multi-use facility means that there's more people coming into that facility that can, okay, we're going to drop our kids off for swimming, and then we're going to, or basketball, and I'm going to go and return my books, or a daycare. I mean, just let's think outside the box.
And there's some priorities ahead of that. I mean, building have to go someplace in the next few years. Because we're tapped out, or is it a new office completely? But, you know, yesterday we had a meeting, DWQMS meeting, and the roads department, Dundalk's asking when are they going to get extra bay, because they're tapped out there, and it's all this great county yard, and do we take that over? I mean, we've talked about that, looking at the Grey County Yard up on Ganelg Street for the new members, and looking at taking on that property. We would retain the sand dome. We could put a roads building department up there. And, you know, if you're thinking of that, then there's the OPP up there, but that's off the beaten path. So, yeah, some long-term planning that has to happen.
That would be part of the strategic planning review to, you know, fully discuss all those kinds of forward-thinking ideas. Certainly not going to throw the librarian out of the library yet. If ever. Okay, that's all for library. Let's move on to roads. Jim?
Okay, for 2023, currently we have Dundalk drain clean out. We've been trying to incorporate some drain work as we keep moving forward here in the capital 10-year forecast. That's just cleaning of some of the current ditches and those systems that we have in town. That'll help include with what we were supposed to do with the extension of the culvert and filling in the ditch along Victoria near Macaulay there. We had looked at it this year because of knowing that the Victoria Street project was coming forward, that we would wait and incorporate that with the Victoria Street work. So again, that's a timing window, but carrying something for drain maintenance as far as that's concerned. The new pit, fencing and stripping, getting ready for extraction. That we'll be bringing a report here shortly about trying to finalize to get our license authorized through ministry. And the Hagan Street road improvements, that was previous councillor's request to look into what it would cost to bring that into full urban design. Currently, again, we had some work scheduled for that Hagan Street East to extend the culverts and get a little bit wider road base through there. Again, due to permit timing window, we received it late, and then knowing that we were maybe going to have a discussion here, that work didn't carry forward this year. So again, council can look, we mentioned maybe making that just a one-way street in off Young Street to Rose Lane to limit traffic flow. We've talked about maybe incorporating sidewalks, so maybe there's a bit of a combination as of going to a full urban design to incorporate some of that, maybe a sidewalk and some of that, and reduce the scope of the work for that. I would say though you're going to carry about half that budget to do that if we want to reduce the scope and look at a one-way street with sidewalk, something along that lines. We're carrying S97 and 98 box culvert replacements with dual CSP pipes is what's recommended. Again, these structures, we've been looking at them. They are they're rated as some of our worst in the township, but still not totally a failure by any means. The reason these are grouped together is they're on Road 12 and they're close together. So there's do one disruption of service in the area and do them both, as opposed to do one this year, do one next year, you're just shutting the road down. So it just makes more sense. Just a reminder for the new council too that the 2022 budget did not carry any bridge work, major bridge work, rehabilitation or replacement. And if we don't do this, that'll be 2 years in a row without doing any bridge work. And following down in the agenda, we have the 2022 inside report of bridges in the state. We can talk about that then, but again, no surprise than any other reports about how our condition of bridges. The next one is the Agnew Pit Rehab. Now that's mostly going to be getting the site finished off for sale, if that's what the township or council wishes to do, to dispose of that asset. We won't really have any more use for that other than a connecting link out to 22. But that piece of property had underwater extraction, so there's a fairly nice pond there. That's all clear. Very, very nice looking property. We just mentioned to council recently we had to do an amendment to the license that, because in the rehab they told us that the whole road had to go out, and we did an amendment because the next guy would probably want a road going right back in there to get to the best area of the property probably. So that's been amended and approved for that license rehab. So basically it'll be just cleaning it up a little bit more, doing some scarifying and topsoil placement back on the lands that are flattened out, and then there's I believe 600 trees that need to be replanted, seedlings in the area. So and then again putting the property up for sale if that's what council wishes to do.
Where?
Jim, what is the acreage?
It's about 60 or 70. I do have that written down, but it's not a full 100. It's I don't have it with me, but I did do some. It's like about 60 or 70 acres, I think.
And is there, so obviously we're selling it with a building lot or a potential for a building lot.
I would imagine there's building envelopes there, yeah, for sure.
And it backs on to, that property backs on to the municipal office? Do they, I've never walked back there.
It backs on to the adjacent west property over.
There's a right of way. We don't have ownership of that roadway. through the farmer's field. So the access to it would be off of 22. That's the only frontage. I'm trying to think. I think the Jim's pretty close. The front property, like the 22 property, would be about 30 acres, maybe 25. Because it was severed off lot 16, and then the parcel off of County Road 9 that we access through our office right of way. It was off the old Agnew farm, and it's likely 30 as well.
So I throw this one out there. Is there any room to sever so the municipal office on 9, assume a portion of that 30 acres that we have the right of way for potential expansion?
Well, we've already dug out of below water table, right? So really, I think we've gone as far as we can, and it's now ocean front property for residential development.
Thanks. Well, I mean, not having been back there, I don't know where the beautiful pond is in relation to, the municipal office. So
I believe one of the council road tours, we did tour back there a few years ago with the bus.
maybe a few years ago. I don't remember.
Like again, it could be a residential development, but there's no support from the county to do what, we could creatively come up with.
So no affordable housing potential?
Well, I think there could be, but policies would have to change, and I think we have to decide whether we're serious about housing and push the county and challenge them. That's what we've been doing, Clint and I. We initiated the meeting that was held there November, 4th or 2nd or whatever. And there was outcomes of that, and then they're gonna continue that. But unless there was one comment from the county planners on one project we showed them that we came here, and they said if there was push from the council of Southgate to say, yes, we need these severances, and yes, we need to have this development, the county policies wouldn't support it, but they would, as he said, use the term, hold his nose. And if the county council support it, so we have to get creative or say we can't do it. I don't know what the answer is. I don't have a crystal ball, and it's not gonna, some of these developments, if we're gonna create housing, aren't gonna make the conservation authorities happy and aren't gonna fit the policies with, everybody on everybody on urban services. And it's not gonna satisfy everybody that thinks that we need transit to these rural developments. But there are rural developments happening because of the existing zoning they have that I'm not sure is in the right place either. So, I think we need to do a bit of a reset on our thinking and either say yes or say no if it makes sense. But I think it has to be looked more at common sense, and seeing the planners not here today, maybe it needs to make common sense instead of planning sense.
Moving right along.
Okay.
Sorry, Martin, go ahead.
With what you just said then, a development like the old Maple Village on 89, they're not allowed anymore?
Sure.
Mobile home trailer park, call it what you will. But
Yeah.
they're all set.
Okay. If you went and bought a farm, it would be, boy, you'd be pushing water uphill to make that something like that Maple Grove Village happen. But if you have a property that has zoning that's kind of like that, you can fit the square peg into the round hole. But you could not take farmland and turn it into that. Unless we start using common sense instead of planning. Because where are these tiny homes gonna go? But I think where we have to leverage, let's not turn farmland into, I'm not saying that.
No.
But let's fix some of the problems we have. Some of these checkerboard lots are a mess still. They're sitting there doing nothing. They're 6 and 10 acres. Let's make them 1 or 2 acre parcels and do something. But it's gonna take some bold, again, I better stop soon. But it's gonna take some bold decisions to maybe build roads and area rate those costs out to people. Say, if you own this lot, you can't just pay $500 a month or a year for taxation on 10 acres. You need to pay what you should be paying residentially, and you're gonna have to support building this road in. So everybody that has frontage on that roadway is gonna pay for the road. Then you increase the value of the property and sever it into severable lots that we can build houses on, or tiny homes, or.
Almost like a drainage thing, like how they do the drainage, 3 or 4
Exactly,
sponsors?
it's same thing. It's, if there's a municipal drain, the people that benefit from it pay for it. That's for those new, that's another discussion for another day.
We'll get training on that from Lindsay.
Okay, the next one is Side Road 75, 26 to 22. It was turned back to gravel this past spring and summer. Again, waiting on permits from SBCA. We just actually got them today to do the couple culvert replacements. They're not huge culverts, but they're not replacements, they're actually additional ones for the new municipal drainage works to go in. So we're mobilizing to do them next week. Actually, now we just got the permit to get the winter over them and settle in and get ready for that paving. This will be an increased level of service. They'll be able to grab a chunk of the DCs due to that because it was a 50 millimeter asphalt. We're recommending to go at least 90 or 100 on it. So that's a couple lifts. It should sustain more of that wear and tear on them. This is deemed to be more of a truck route now. There's a lot of trucks traveling this road. You have to realize if Highway 10 shuts down, this road's getting tractor trailer use due to being detoured around to capture that road. So anyhow, and the municipal drain, hopefully it's going to construct here this next year. We don't have, we've done most of our work for the drainage works there, so most of that work will be paid for the petitioners of the drains and those involved in the watershed. So there should be very little for the township to keep contributing. But that road drainage with the municipal drainage works will improve through that area because some of that water is laying right beside the road and not being able to get away in some of those areas. So that'll help the road base as well. High Point improvements, that's part of White Rose Phase 3. That's to tie in a contribution for us to tie in sidewalk connection to get around off Bradley and come around onto High Point and connect that sidewalk that's just past Pine Court. And that is also filling in one side of the ditch with storm piping and catch basins to allow for that sidewalk to go in along the road. The developer's taking the main cost on this, but there is a portion that's really ours to contribute to as well. So, and that project is supposed to proceed in 2023. I know from being at a site meeting there last week, they're very close to having all the groundwork infrastructure in. They were talking about commissioning water main this week. I haven't seen anything come through to finalize that, but they really stepped up their pace in White Rose as far as Phase 3. And by the look of things, this work will probably take place in 2023. Victoria Street reconstruction, that again ties in with ICIP Green Stream funding that we got for water main portion of it, and that's Victoria Street right from Russell to Ida, and that was a $5 million ICIP grant that we're going to receive, but that doesn't, we have to contribute what work has to be done as far as the roads. So there's a lot of granular that we've incorporated into the funding pricing, but we still have to pave the road. We're putting sidewalk on all the north side of that street. There won't be any sidewalk on the south. New storm drainage all through there, which will be a big improvement. Give outlet like we did to Main Street for connection to properties to relieve their water in areas, to move their sump pumps and eaves troughs, that type of surface water, to a viable outlet. That work is going to be phased. I don't know where it's going to start and begin and end, if it'll be out at Russell, if it's going to be at Ida. We're also looking with, it's further down the line, about doing a section of water main replacement upgrade between Victoria and Hanbury, and that's due to help with some fire flows, because on Victoria from well 3 where we come out onto the street, we're going to upgrade that to 10-inch, and then go west out to Ida with 10-inch, and then go Ida, Hanbury to Victoria with 10-inch, and then at that point we'll be able to connect to the existing water main that's 8-inch and help with more fire flow out to Eco Parkway. So again, that's why that's been slipped into to do with this work at the time. Again, I don't know which end we're starting at, but it all makes sense to kind of try and incorporate all at once. We realize there'll be debenture with this. It won't be funded off general taxation. Obviously, there'll be a payment going forward in years. But the sanitary work, we've cameraed it all. There's a few minor repairs, but generally the sanitary is in good shape. But again, with going into the road and doing all this work, halfway between Ida and Macaulay, there's no sanitary. So we are putting sanitary in at an elevation that will meet the current needs for the future when, because currently there's no sanitary on Ida Street, that when that work comes along, we'll be able to tie in and not have to go into the road work again. So that's similar to what we have. Another line item here is Artemisia Street South. Again, that's when we go past these intersections, we go in a little bit, like 20 meters or whatever. But then for Artemisia Street, it's a very short distance to connect and upgrade that water main that we upgraded coming off of Main Street East project to a 6-inch, because currently it's 4, and upgrade that while we're going by there, and it's only another 20 or 30 meters that we're adding on to the project for Victoria Street Works.
So when you're speaking about Victoria and all the upgrades to 10-inch, down to 8, increases fire flow, benefits future development, can DCs play a role in that going forward to help reduce the debenture that we are taking on for that?
Yeah, I would think we're going to grab anything we can there. Again, we are talking, it's further in the water one, but about the fire pump system there, about it's currently not in the DC, and it kind of was a late subject that came when the DC was about to be approved for this year, and but we want to reopen it and include that, so if we've missed any gaps, we'll capture them with reopening up in the next year or so to bring forward those costs. But that fire pump stuff, we're getting ahead of ourselves maybe on the water side, but that's going to be more targeted at industrial commercial, because that's the problem, that we're having to meet these big building requirements as opposed to your normal housing residential. So that's where the target's going to be on the DCs, on the industrial commercial side.
Just an additional question, if I may.
Go ahead.
The Victoria Street construction, given we know that we have a portion of the ISEP or the ISEP grant, 5 million, that's paying for a portion of that road. So the total road construction and all pipes and everything, we're talking $10 million. Put it in
11 or 12, something like that.
Right. And that 5.7 million Is there any, are we gonna like get grant match, keeping an eye out for any other kind of funding opportunities? I know that you're always looking for funding opportunities.
I'm sure we will.
I'm not sure, we'd have to look back and whether some of that's stackable too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That grant was specifically for water, was it not?
Yeah, that's just for water.
It's not for the road portion, so maybe there could be something there, but we've always got our eyes open for.
Well, we can keep our fingers crossed.
But the budgeting includes for the water section because of all the granular that's gonna go out and not be coming back in, that more of the portion of the granular aggregate that's gonna be for the road and the get to the water main, where that's incorporated into the funding, more of it than the top layer or something's gonna contribute to roads. But all the deep dig base and the aggregate will be incorporated in the water main portion of things. Holstein Pit expansion license, we've been talking about, there's the property owner to the east is willing to work with us, and they want to retain the land back at some point, so instead of purchasing it, because then we have to put it up for sale as an asset open to everybody, that we would look towards some sort of agreement, whether that be paying a tonnage royalty for extraction or whatever agreement. We'll have to bring that to council, but again, there's a hydro line that has to be moved. There was talk about taking out the road between, there's a pit on the other side of the road about extracting. We've done this before. We kind of got preliminary costs, and then they kind of went away and didn't think that was worth taking the road out. Discussion just the other night, sounded like they're interested again. But we can't nail down Hydro One when we talk to Hydro, like they've got about a 6-month window to work with. So we've got a year or two of planning to go through probably, because you have expansion now has to meet the whole process of ARA licensing. So again, all the studies and that have to be done. So that's why we're carrying some budget here to work on study work and not necessarily maybe some sort of deposit to the owners, knowing that we're going to commit to the agreement kind of thing. But this is, and that placeholder maybe could come down. We put a placeholder in. Maybe we could look at 50,000. That's going to be the study work. But again, we want to bring this to council's attention. It's the time to look at it. We've got somebody willing to work with us, and that's where we're at. Holstein overhead garage door replacement, again, going with the British, the building condition assessment reports and those functions of our facilities. We haven't been doing maybe a great job at keeping up with renovations and upgrades and stuff. So again, this ties into our energy management plan as well, about trying to create efficiencies for heating and those. So again, it's not necessarily that we need to do it this year, but we should be trying to look at doing some sort of capital facility improvements as well, and not just leaving everything status quo. So again, for discussion, it could come out, but trying to meet the needs of everything, right? Not really carrying any reserve schedules here with that. I spoke about the Ida Street Victoria connection there. And then again, once our ARA license is finished, the previous council had committed to looking at selling the farm, and we would retain a lease of the pit operation for probably a 20 to 40 year period. But there's still a lot of workable land there, about 70 acres. There's a stone house on the property, there's an old barn, there's a drive shed. So it has got a valuable asset that we could turn into some cash flow for the township as well. So again, until we get that licensing, we can't get to that stage. And whether this council supports that initiative as going forward again, we'll have to bring that to council for discussions.
Jason?
If we do sell those properties, the Agnew pit as well, where does that money go? Does it just go back into general, or can we allocate that to the roads because it's in that, or?
The budget right now anticipates a certain sale price and that going into the roads reserve. Again, the budget doesn't anticipate using those funds in 2023 because it's basically sell the pit, sell something now, and then use that money in the future years. Because if you don't sell it in 2023, then you've messed up your funding your other projects.
But it stays in the roads.
That's the anticipation. It'll
Yeah.
stay in the roads reserves. Yes.
Yeah, it's not going to the library.
We're anticipating looking at harvest of our municipal properties. Most of them are around the landfill area. Again, the ash borer, we did study work a few years ago. We haven't done any with the conservation lately. It was identified then with the traps that we had set out in and around certain areas that the ash borer was becoming present in the area. It doesn't look like it's done a devastation of things, maybe the odd tree or something, but we'd be looking at taking a lot of that ash out where it was marketable size, or if it's dead as firewood. But the new parcel that we purchased this year east of the landfill, it has quite a bit of marketable timber on it, and that would be one of the areas that would have most of the harvest work done probably. Again, we're just putting a number in there at 100,000. It could be more. I'm not sure of the timber prices right now, but this is hardwood mostly. It's not softwood, so it should be a higher pay level than softwood. And then 26 from 75 to Highway 10. Just within the last month or 6 weeks, we turned that back to gravel because of not being able to manage how it's going to take the spring break up again. We could barely manage it last year with pothole repair place patching. So it's easier to send one guy out in a grader to grade it here and there. But that's right at the end of 75. So again, we're looking at putting a 90 or 100 millimeter base asphalt into that. And that would again increase level of service because going from 50 millimeter and being able to grab some DC for that as well. I may caution you too as well. We did turn a couple other roads back just recently with this to gravel. One being 04 from Gray Road 14 to Side Road 11. Haven't heard much about that one, but we've heard more about one resident mostly on Side Road 11 from county, or the junction of County Road 14, which is our 08 to Highway 89. So we do have that proposed for pavement for 2024, but council may hear from people about the request for
Request to pave it sooner or to leave it as gravel, because I heard the opposite. I heard from a resident that they were quite vocal about leaving it as gravel to hopefully maybe slow the traffic or reduce the amount of traffic coming up that way, but not sure.
Yeah. Not recently, I haven't heard that. I heard that back in the spring about turning it back to gravel. Again, one of those sections that's just constantly trying to keep cold patch in and hot patch, and it just wasn't staying. So we know, I mentioned to council before, that this road sees a lot of traffic because people come from Wellington, I think it's 16, and then a short jog on to 89, and instead of going down to the county road, they're blasting up there. So yeah, it should be a deterrent for some speed and some of those traffic that'll realize that maybe they better go to the county road system. So. Then we get into the equipment side of things.
What about the Holstein Dam?
Sorry?
The Holstein Dam, you have $50,000.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm gonna be bringing a report Tuesday. We do have the dam safety review completed now. It was submitted to us. 50,000 was kind of looking at the rental currently of the cofferdam we have in. We have a price to purchase it, which is 50,000. So with the dam safety report, generally it said it was in overall good condition with some minor concrete repairs. I was surprised at what they came up with for totals, because the totals are around, I think, $280,000. They don't have to be done immediately. They can be done over time, but those are the suggested works for the dam itself. But now we have that dam safety review. The engineer is going to put a letter into the Ministry of Natural Resources with a couple options. One is to take the sluice and decommission it completely because it wasn't functioning before, is the theory. The other thing is, for option 2, is to, if they need to have that water go into the little tributary across Grey Road 109, then reduce the size of the pipe with putting a smaller pipe in and then grouting around it and having some sort of bit of control still on it, and theoretically have a sluice remain there. And if the ministry won't take that as options, then the next option would be to submit for rehabilitating a new sluice system. And what that entails, I'm not sure yet, whether it be similar to what we have, or if we could do the reroute thing that was talked to council about down some property we own, which was called Water Street, back to the river. Those are still options, but I would say this 50,000 right now is okay to carry till we get a little bit firmer decision on what we're going to do, unless council thinks that we should buy the cofferdam materials that are there at a cost of 50,000 currently. We're currently paying 3,000 monthly for that rental of it. So you can see this process with the ministry may drag out a year or whatever. The downside of purchasing it is currently the contractor hasn't had a need for this machine, so it's still sitting there. So if we got approval and he could pull it, then he'd be gone and everything's said and done. If we buy it and then pull it later and have to mobilize and demobilize, this initial mobilization costs $25,000. So it's pay one way or the other, I guess, kind of thing. So, but how long do we know? We don't know. So, yeah, it's a catch-22 that way. So for the equipment, we have a grader replacement. I mentioned briefly at the last first meeting there that surprisingly grader replacement has went up about $100,000 from the last year, from knowing what neighboring municipalities paid for graders. A 10-ton trailer for our floating of our equipment. That's a little bit beefier than the trailer we currently have, that you know, we rent a small excavator or roller or something. We can't move them around with our tandems or anything because the float is not big enough. That would give us a bit more versatility when we're doing with rental equipment, being able to move it around and stuff. New tandem for Hopeville. This is an increase to level of service. I spoke briefly too about the classification of roads and currently being basically class 4, 5, and 6 in Southgate. We are at the verge of some class 3 roads possibly due to traffic counts mostly. The way we can get around that is reducing speed limits to bring it back into a class 4, but you'd be probably into a 60-kilometer zone as opposed to an 80. But that level of service increase for that class 3 means that we need a truck probably going in the afternoons as well, maintaining those roads till midnight or so, similar to what the county does. So again, the DC grabs this because this is part of increased level of service. So it's not necessarily something we have to do this year. I just put it out there as, again, it's something that could be taken off and be put in a future year, but it's something we have to consider, that our level of service for a 75, a 73, a 49, a 04, and these roads aren't all together either, so that's what's going to make it difficult. We'll basically probably need not necessarily another second truck purchase, but again, putting another shift on probably over this way, because the roads, you know, you're driving a lot of roads, we'd be plowing something, but I mean, to keep on top of them in a timely manner probably. And it's not every day that we need to be doing this, it's only when the snow is falling, or the ice is forming.
Jason?
On that point, you have your patroller out at night. What would be the cost difference of him actually, if he's patrolling, he's got to take the plow truck? Like, you know, you get some roads opened up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you are considered patrolling if you are doing activity like that. It is doable. Again, but if you're driving around chasing no snowflakes, it's costing you more in fuel and everything else.
Right,
You
but I
wouldn't-
mean,
But our problem basically with his patrollers, they don't have a DZ license. So you can't put them in the truck like that.
so I
Hard to
guess that
find
question,
DZ
maybe it's, why are we hiring them if they don't have a DZ license? Just like, I mean,
Well,
I understand
still
the
do
patrollers
this function, because what they're doing after that, they're not necessarily plowing roads. They're going to Dundalk to do sidewalk maintenance or whatever. That's how we've set this up. The county, they patrol roads like the way you say.
Yeah.
If it's a clear night, they're in a pickup or the one ton doing whatever.
Yeah.
But they're not, but if there's call for snow, they can get in that can, it's a tri-axle for them, but drive the road,
Right.
be able to. And you're totally right, but it's just, we're looking for a DZ driver still for a couple of months. We still haven't filled all the slots, so we need to, at this point, have the patroller, and they need to have that Class G or whatever to get around the townships. But I understand what
No,
you're saying.
What?
Bubble
Yeah, I don't know.
No snow.
Jim?
Just with the new tandem truck, I have seen, I know more in the states of Pennsylvania, I've seen it, where they're using farm tractors and they have it rigged up with a wing and plow combo, which would take away needing a DZ driver. Is that something that's possible, or?
I'm not sure of anyone that's doing that practice here in Ontario, but it's something we could look into. I'm not aware of that necessarily.
Yeah, no, I know like it's down Pennsylvania, but they don't get near the snow. It's just when they do, it will drift in, and I have seen them use that. So, like, would that be a possibility? Because then you don't need the DZ.
I guess that theoretically could be, but you know, what's your outlay of equipment, the size of tractor you need, and you're not going to get around the roads as quite as quick. Can you sand at the same time, or do you just plow the snow?
Mm-hmm.
It's food for thought, but
Yeah.
I'm not don't know of current practice that way in Ontario.
Interesting
Good
idea,
roads
though.
question.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. Just about the grader. I noticed like it's 580, and then every year it seems to go up by 20,000. Just so I can better understand, like, is it something that's being maintained, or if they get a new one, or maybe I'm not understanding. Or the grader, or the 580, and then I just noticed like maybe sorry, 2025 is 600, and then.
Yeah, we've did an inflationary cost increase. We don't know what that number is. It's like Dave said, we're hearing the same thing about trucks. You can't guarantee you the price. We can tell you this is the price today, but when we go to deliver, it's not necessarily be that.
Because we might not get it this year. So we're just seeing it for the years after, right?
Well, that's incorporated the replacement of other fleet going down further down the line. You know, it's had its time here and it's time for replacement. So that's why you see another grader further down for replacement of another unit that's been here 15 or 20 years.
That was my next question. So you just answered that too. Perfect. Thank you.
Dave?
Well,
Sorry.
let Jim finish.
All right, go ahead.
So, just while we're on the snowplow thing, we got communication on Sunday, and you'll see it occasionally here in Southgate. Viking in Mount Forest, just across from if you take 109 out to Highway 6, just across there is Viking. And they do snowplow equipment, and most of our equipment's equipped, the big plows and the wings and everything, with the sander boxes. All that stuff is manufactured and built there at Mount Forest. But they occasionally have equipment there that they want to take out and do a run and check it out. And this past Sunday, we got a call and information that could they send a 22-foot plow out on Road 10 to do some test trials or whatever. So they're just making us aware if we get calls, that we see equipment out and it's got 22-foot swath on it, that it's not necessarily us out there, but we've allowed them to pilot occasionally when they have something to check it out. So just heads up, if you hear about it, that's what's happening.
Jason?
Just on that point with Viking, is there any, we could reach out to them and maybe demo units or something? Like, I don't know if they do that. I just thought of that when you said that, they're trying it out. Like, with farm equipment, you can demo stuff, and we're right here beside them, maybe. It's kind of a crazy thing.
We'll have to ask Mayor's brother.
Yeah.
I know he'd rather sell it.
Yeah.
Barb?
What's the liability when they're plowing our road? We're testing out a piece of equipment and, something happens. Like they take out a mailbox or...
Well, they'd be responsible for it as far as I'm concerned, so.
They'll have lots of insurance, but doesn't matter. They'd come after both of us likely anyway.
Right.
Okay.
The next one is excavator upgraded replacement. Now again, we've reached out to the insurance company. This is an excavator we had that burnt this past year in the late summer. So we hadn't had much traction because they've been looking for a like replacement. And most of these are in the States or further away. And they've come back just recently saying that they maybe got a replacement that they're looking at for us in New York. So again, that might go away as far as a line item. But again, this excavator is doing a lot of our brushing on side roads lately, the last few years. And we do have the brusher head still for it, so as long as we can match that up. So we might not necessarily have to carry budget to, because if we were gonna take some money from insurance, we'd probably look at maybe a size or two bigger machine than currently we have for upgrading. But sounding like that may come off and they may have a replacement for us.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Anything else, Jim? Or any other questions? I'll put it that way from the council. No?
I had just
Oh,
one
sure, go
comment,
ahead,
just to,
Dave.
Monica brought up about, like the price of plows in the future, or trucks or whatever. Take that as placeholders, like Jim kind of explained that well, but they're placeholders for the future, and it's totally an estimate of what that pricing is. It won't come down, as I understand. Likely to go up. The other thing is that we have been very successful over the years, and I heard a comment, I think it was Councilor Rice brought it up, about, the $1 million, or let's say, whatever we were able to sell the farm for. It's a bit of a windfall, but we may want to reinvest that and be looking for the next gravel pit, because it's been very, very good to us. We've likely saved $1 or $2 or $3 or $4 a ton by having our own pit, depending where it is. Strategically, if you can put that pit in the right place in the township and be able to draw a shorter distance, that's less trucking, so. But there's two things there. If you've got a need, you should invest it and make future pay for that's what we did with this farm on 22. We bought it and we borrowed the money and we paid it off over time. did we put some down? And had a $600,000 mortgage?
I don't know if we put down.
But anyway, it was a really, really good investment because we likely got the gravel for free.
Well, yeah, the way the lands went. Yeah, sure.
May not be so good in the next 10
No.
years, but
I see
still,
your point, yeah.
that gravel asset is huge for us. So I think we should be looking strategically for the next pit.
Barb?
Well, and given the fact, as you know, the length of time it takes to get aggregate license approved and get through that process, might want to
Start now.
start now.
Good discussion, so?
Just to wrap up quickly, one more comment. You know, generally, we've seen in the past capital roads budgets in the 1 million, 2 million, maybe a 3 million budget. This one's asking for 10. So we know that the Victoria Street's a big component, half of it that's gonna take loan, but this is a big ask. You know, we have a lot of pressures. Council's heard. We've heard from council, we've heard from ratepayers about roads. Again, no bridge work being done. That's gonna, catch up with us too. So big decisions to make. We can recommend what we want, but you guys are also gonna hear about it too. You know, people want this done too. So.
Yep, good advice, Jim, thank you. Martin?
So, we've always talked about that 1% levy for roads. Are we gonna talk about that
Yep,
and do something?
yep.
Because Jim just said 10 million, we better do it.
Well, and
Well, depending on what the levy rate is.
well, we certainly need to see the operational costs as the other half of the budget, but yes,
Yeah.
that is a discussion, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, for sure. Okay, moving on, solid waste. That's back to Mr. Ellis.
Okay, so again, we have carts in here. That's an ongoing thing with development. Certainly, we are replacing some of the older carts as well. They've been taking a little bit of a hit lately with the trucks having some issues with the arms too, and then being a little brittler and stuff. But the carts are kind of an in and out a little bit because we are getting for the new residents that payback of the investment on it, on supplying them. There could be changes too with Blue Box of who's buying those carts for the blue. If we are and we're getting reimbursed, or the whoever we're going to deal with and negotiate with, whether they have to supply us with our needs for the future growth, and they just give us the inventory or roll out the inventory or however that's going to work. But the Blue Box part of carts may change in the future. We have a collection truck in here. Currently that would replace unit 213, which is a 2012 or 2013 unit. Again, we're not going to see a truck for a year or two. Even though we budget for it, we put it in, we've still got to put up with 213, and it's becoming more and more in action with the increased development and how we get around to do these routes. So again, we generally don't pay for it right away. We pay for the chassis usually when we receive it, as that, and usually let's say it's 50% or whatever of that total price, and then we pay for the chassis and then the body. But Liam has to have a budget. It's got to be paid for now. You can't say we're paying for it later. So again, that ties our hands. We've got to commit. We're not going to see it for a couple of years, or they'd be hopeful to see it sooner than that, but that's what we're hearing, a year and a half to 2 years.
So, to interrupt, that's not completely accurate. If this vehicle is being ordered in 2023 and not being delivered till a future year, we do have some flexibility there, and I would suggest we contribute some to reserves in 2023 and have that expense shown in 2024. Again, it's council committing to the future expense in 2023. So that sounds like not an opportunity here where we could smooth a little bit here and shave a little bit off 2023 and move into 2024 if that's the case. Is it 2024 is a one-year delivery, Jim, is what you're thinking? Like the fire truck, we split it in half. Like we funded it half in 23 and half in 2024. So it sounds like the collection truck would do the same thing.
Yeah, we might see the chassis in 24 if we order it in the spring of 23. It's hard to say.
So I'd recommend that we did that with that item.
I think that's unreasonable. Yep.
And again, I think I had this discussion with the orientation. They're looking for the future of, you know, the other fuel alternative, and we'll probably start with a collection truck, whether that be the natural gas type stuff or something. But I don't think this truck's at the time that we can look at doing that. I think we need to, there should be something come along down the pipe when the governments want us to go to other fuels, that there should be some infrastructure money to put in for how we're going to charge these things, how we're going to put in filling stations or whatever. I would hope that there'd be something to grab onto for that infrastructure in the future.
Quick question, just about the waste collectors, are they town staff or are they contractors?
No.
Oh, so those are our own staff?
Yeah.
And around, like, how much staff is on the collection routes that you have?
It's broken. If you have your profile, it's in there.
Oh, okay.
We have currently 4 operators.
4 operators, okay.
And 4 attendants at the transfer stations.
And so when they're on collection routes, there's always 2 people in during, like, in the truck, and like, is there just 1 person in the truck?
1 person in the truck.
Okay.
Because there's no manual. If they can't pick it up from the arm, we don't go out and pick it unless they tip the cart over or something happens that way.
Oh, okay.
If the wind blows it over or something, we don't go out and pick it up. But if it's an operator error that's tipped the cart, then we get out and they'll have to clean it up.
Okay.
It's a certain mess.
Okay.
But it's a one-man operation, and you see people, especially in the new developments, putting the couch out at the curbside, the mattress. We don't come along and pick that up.
Yeah.
If it don't fit in the cart, we don't get it. So it needs to go to the transfer stations.
Okay. Thank you.
Barb?
Thank you, through you. The full producer responsibility, we had this discussion when we had this first glance, and has there been any updates on, I mean, if it's supposed to be full producer responsibility, why are they not responsible for multi-residential or commercial pickup?
Because initially, that's how the Blue Box program rolled out too. And traditionally, smaller communities allowed, like we did for a downtown commercial or that combination with a residential unit upstairs. We didn't have big multi-residential units. We had, some Grey County housing complexes with 20 units, say, or less. We had some other smaller ones that have 6 or 12. So we've accommodated them, but the negotiations and how Blue Box was set up originally is we didn't have to. We did get audited and dinged a little bit a few years ago by RIPRA for including, we did have included some commercial in that. We had to pull some of that out, so there was a penalty for 1 year of $5,000 or $6,000, I think we didn't collect the following year. We didn't pay it, but they just didn't pay as much the following year. So now we have that all broken out, but they will not, and this is not just us, it's the province, the producers are not going to pay for, it's a household thing, it's residential, it's not for those other type of facilities.
Well, so we need to look at how we recoup those costs from that. If we're not going to get compensated for pickup, we're looking at all of that in how, like, if we're going to encourage more multi-residential and it's going to cost the taxpayer more, I guess we'll have that discussion.
Yeah. Currently, our bylaw says that up to after 6 units, we're not going to put them in our program. And so the Block 75 apartment, now we do have exceptions. That's how our bylaw is written. We do have exceptions with Grey County facilities.
Right.
Like that. But we don't have to accept it. And Block 75 apartments, we do not, they don't have carts. We aren't doing it for pickup. They asked for a set of carts for just some promotional stuff they do outside or whatever, and we said we would give them a set of carts just for that kind of pickup. But that's all we're committing to.
FYI, Block 75 is the seniors apartment, Edward Suites, correct?
Okay.
Just for everybody's.
Jason?
It's to Monica's point, I brought it up before, it's maybe not popular, right, about privatizing it or going to an out company to pick up, like, I don't know, we're looking at the numbers here, and there's only so much money, and I know it can't happen this year, but I'm just wondering if it's something we gotta look at. It was a pretty controversial thing when this system came in. It's a good system, I like it, wheeled into the road. But I'm just wondering if we have to maybe look, there's 4 employees, truck every couple of years. Could we get it picked up cheaper? I know it's not popular, but.
Well, I think we've got a good example happening next door in Grey Highlands, because they're just going to implement and they're going to have a contractor doing it. So we'll be able to look at some real costs here of what, locally in our area, what it's costing to do business. We can look at it well for something, but there's no comparison. So Grey Highlands could be more comparable to what we're doing and be able to bring that analysis forward.
Good question, and I've heard it a number of times myself over the years. There's lots of services.
The one thing you have to really consider there is don't think about collection. You got to think about the whole system. So our diversion doesn't put stuff in landfill, and our landfilling costs, we can't say they're zero, but they're very low because we maintain our own landfill with the engineering costs we have. But you can't just look at collection only.
Yep. No, that's true. Jason?
So we could still maintain our own landfill, couldn't we?
You could.
Yeah.
You could. But
For sure.
we're a bit specialized because we've got such a good diversion system. There's not many people that collect organics and waste and recyclables. So, and I think the jury's still out. It may be shown that we are going to be in pretty good shape with full producer responsibility because of the level of organics and waste we keep out of the system. Recycles we keep out of the system.
Well, it's a good point, and as Jim pointed out, quite rightly, that Grey Highlands is going to be a great example right next door, so we'll have a real lifetime look at what the costs are there. Go ahead.
Thank you. To that point, though, is Grey Highlands contractor going to be the dual truck, like where we can pick up? They don't have compost pickup.
No.
It's just blue and gray.
It's just going to be, it'll either be recycling 1 week or waste 1 week.
Right.
They don't have the organic program.
It'll certainly give us a better picture.
For sure. All right, moving on to cemetery.
For 2023, there's no increase for capital. We did have foundation repairs, but we've since moved that into operations. We were carrying $5,000 a year in capital for that, but Liam makes more sense to go into operation. It's further down the line. We're proposing this year in an operation to bring back the part-time cemetery caretaker. It's just not working out logistically as well anymore for us with an operator having split duties. So, and then with that, if we implement that, we would take back over our grass cutting there at Maple Grove Cemetery. We wouldn't contract that out. And we'd have a mower further down the line in 27 for replacement and 28 a columbarium. Those may change depending on, if the columbarium fills up quicker or the lawnmower gives us grief. But currently, no real capital for cemetery proposed this year.
Okay. Wastewater.
We had the open house for the wastewater mediated technology and wrap up towards the end of satisfying the ministry process. Mary, our editor-in-chief, writer, she was one of the 2 attendants that attended that night from 3 to 7. We only see 2 people show up.
Was I the other one?
Yep.
Oh, that's sad.
So we do have to have another one to finish the process in January. We're proposing maybe looking at it like a window of 4:30 to 7. Just if the interest isn't there, we had information online, but nobody seemed to be too interested. Again, these are the technologies we've looked at and about phasing in, so we hope to go to construct tender in the spring and construction sometime in 2023. So again, these are now the general taxation, water and wastewater area rated to the users of the systems. Victoria Street, that's that portion with the construction to install new sanitary at the west end. Again, that's the same, carrying something for Ida Street there. And this was new that council didn't see in the previous line items of capital. Just recently, the furnace, the airpop unit at Lagoon failed, and we need a replacement. And it's going to be about 4 or 5 months before we'll see a replacement at about 23 or 24,000. But they do have a unit in stock they can convert to us, because we can't have that building with no heat full of water. So we have an agreement here with the contractor. We did a couple pricing. One was 23, the other was 43 or whatever. But this one, it'll be on the operational side for 5,000. They're putting a furnace in there to do the work for us to get us through the winter anyways. So. But that wasn't in there, that line item here, the previous version.
Okay. Water?
And water, the water tower will be commissioned in August of 2023 is the timeline currently. Miscellaneous equipment, that's just replacement value or something for lab equipment if we need it. The Neptune collection tower, that's going to go on top of the water tower and hopefully capture most of the water meter reads. They've done a study. There's a little area out towards Eco Parkway that maybe we're not capturing as well. There are some different technologies we could implement to grab those without having to go there. But for the amount of them, we maybe stay where we are. We're also looking at doing a study with currently at the wastewater site. There was a wind tower experiment that put up an antenna, and that was back in 2005 or a long time ago.
Long time ago.
They had 2 or 3 years to do their study. They removed their equipment. They were supposed to remove the tower a few years, within a couple of years. They flew the coop, so we presume we own it. So we're looking at doing a water meter study off that tower, and whether the future development for Highway 10 or whatever, if we can't get it by chance from that water tower, then we can maybe implement another collection site at that tower. It's already standing there. And then we're wanting to look at trying to do a water bulk station. We were wondering about tying in this with the water tower piping work, whether we could fit it in there. It sounds like the timing's right. We haven't been able to explore yet what the ministry requirements are to installing one of them yet. So that's a bit of homework we still have to do. And not necessarily this year.
If there was a water bulk station, that would be revenue for service, correct?
Correct, yeah. They have different systems. One of them is you put your credit card in. It's not going and filling up a bottle of water. It's getting a tanker truck or bigger street sweeper or whatever. You can go and fill them up and take that load off our operators with opening hydrants and that type of stuff. You know, back services, everybody's using them for construction and everything. They're looking for water all the time. So it's just a simpler way and keep our operations out of it. and revenue source that's more reliable on volume.
Go ahead.
So with that bulk water, that wouldn't be drinkable water?
It's
Or
part
it
of
would
that.
be, oh, it would be treated, just because obviously you don't know what somebody's going to use it for, so.
No, it's, yeah, it's come right out of the tower.
Oh, Martin?
Jim, with the new water tower, and you're talking about towers and putting electrical, monitors and what have you, would we, or could we rent that out to other people, like internet providers?
Well, there's already interest,
Oh, okay.
and it'll only get, that's a valuable asset up
Oh,
there.
yeah.
It's only 6 million. It's only cost us 6 million.
Jason's volunteered to go out and put the tower up. Won't be going up, I know that.
We talked about that yesterday.
We had discussion with the drinking water quality management team there yesterday, the risk review assessment, about the tower. We just started talking about, we haven't assessed the hazard and risks and stuff associated with it. Just put in some block of what we know we need to look at going in the future once we start in operations with it. But yeah, it got talked about, some places have a Canadian flag on the top, and well, knowing Brian's passion with flags, we'd be up there every day, so I don't think he suggests painted it on the side because
So we're looking for climbers.
if I get up there once, I'll be doing good.
All right.
The other ones I think we've talked about, the water main on Ida and Artemisia with the Victoria project. And again, bringing in something for the automated fire pump upgrade, bringing in the DC with that and looking towards making something happen here in the near future with the upgrade there.
Okay, any questions about that, the water? If not, we have a motion. Not yet. Not yet.
Lindsay's keeping me on.
I know. That's all right.
You're sitting here, so you can nudge him.
Motion
We all right?
that we moved and seconded. Jim? No, we already have the movers and seconders, but I think, did you move it early?
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think
remember.
It was Councillor Rice and Councillor Ferguson, yeah.
Good, okay. So the motion is there. Is all those in favor? Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
So one of the recommendations is to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Are we, like, what does that mean?
We're receiving the report.
Oh, I know.
I know.
Just ask.
Liam?
Well, just the council direction on this is the project list that we've presented, so is this what you're comfortable proceeding with for the next meeting?
I'm gonna say yes, because we're not approving it. We're just moving it to the next step, because I think we want to see the operational budget as well, and then see how that all fits together, right? Because it's a little unfair to ask us to approve this without seeing the operational side. At least that would be my interpretation. What was your interpretation?
Well, no, and I agreed not final approval until you see the operational budget, but the tax rate impact of this current presentation is quite significant.
Yep.
So I'll be surprised if council goes with it as presented. So is there any specific area that council wants to modify to bring that down? Because right now, roads and fire have a significant increase in requirement. And I know that's not going to go to the blended tax rate. So
Right.
is there anything today that council knows we can change so we don't have to talk about it again later?
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts?
So just to put this in perspective, I mean, if we can get that information today, is the 29th of November meeting even necessary, I guess, is our.
When were you proposing to bring the operational budget forward?
I think it's
December 14th.
Correct,
Okay.
that's right.
So maybe it's not, I don't know.
Well.
We did have other things planned for that
There's other,
meeting, but
for sure, but there, I mean, if they have to, they can wait.
They could
but-
wait, yeah.
But, you know, do you need a week to marinate on this budget and be prepared to come back and say, chop, chop, fizz, fizz, or relief
Well,
fizz, and we find
I mean,
where we're gonna be?
Well, that's true, but I think the returning members, this is their second look at it. For the new members, this is only their first look at it. So I'm suggesting that we receive this and come back on the 29th with some more discussion.
That's exactly what we suggested.
Is everybody agreeable to that? I mean, we're not approving this, we're just saying we're receiving this for information at this point.
You won't be reproving it final, even at the next meeting,
No.
but at least getting it back down to something, and we haven't had this discussion, but what we're gonna have to do is have some analysis of, okay, you know, you've put out that the, what, 130 per 1% is 130?
135,000 is.
Yeah, so
1%
what we may need to do is some analysis of, you know, what is that gonna impact the actual tax rate increase?
Exactly.
What have we got more this year than last year? And is that 10%, 12%, 15%? I don't know.
Well, the treasurer looks scared, so I'm thinking it's significant, yeah, so.
Well, right now, the increase for capital is $1.8 million. So that
14% or 15%.
14% blended tax rate impact.
That's cowboy
if
math.
Capital gets approved as presented.
Hold on, Councilor, hold on.
So staff recognizes that's unrealistic, but we would like direction as which projects council really needs to proceed with and which ones don't need to be proceeded
Right.
with yet.
Right. And as I said, I think it's a little unfair at this point to ask, you know, the new members particularly, this is their first kick at it, what they want done. So I think we need more time to go through it, think about it. And, you know, obviously the treasurer and the CEO are available via email or telephone, or the department heads. You know, if you have further questions about what if we did this, or what if we did that, and, you know, come back with some more thoughts. 'Cause
So for right now, the only change I have is the collection truck. I've presented it as a 2024 project, but ordered in 2023.
Right.
I haven't changed the taxation impact of that. I just moved that presentation.
Right. Barbara.
There was,
We have the closed session first.
there was also the 50% of something, where did I write it down? 50% in, to put it in reserve, and then the balance.
That was a
sorry.
collection truck.
Was that the collection
I
truck?
thought. That's
Okay.
what I've done, is
You
the
can
amount
make a
that
note
was
anyway.
currently presented
Thank
as
you.
being needed is now going to be reserved and used in 2024 instead. I didn't change the overall impact on this, I just used the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
So the motion is still relevant at this point then, from our
It
discussion?
sounds like that's what council wishes, yes?
Yep. All right, so all those in favor? That is carried. Now we need a motion to go past noon. The clerk's just about off her chair over there. Jason and Jim, all those in favor? Thank you. That's a procedural thing we need to do, just to go past noon.
Go please.
Or past 3 hours or whatever. What's that, Beth?
If you didn't make that in 1 minute, I thought I could go back to work.
I'm hoping you're
Snuck
at
it
work
in
right
there.
now. So, all right, that's done. We'll move the motion to go back into council. Someone move that for me. Martin, thank you. Barb, all those in favor? Thank you. So now we're back into council, special council meeting. It is noon. We do have some sustenance in the refrigerator left over from the inaugural, and there's lots of it there. So why don't we break for 20 minutes? And then we'll come back and we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. Is that agreeable to everybody? All right, let's recess till 12. Well, let's bring the meeting back to order. Motions resulting from committee of the whole. This is the basically to approve in council what we just did in committee of the whole. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report finance 2022-031. The 2023 capital budget as information, and that council directs staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. So a little bit of procedural stuff. Mover? Martin, thank you. Monica, yeah. All those in favor? That is carried. Excellent. Reports of municipal officers. Madam Clerk, this would be yours to deal with the member appointment extension. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report CL 2022-030 as information, and that council extend the appointment of Guy Guardhouse to the Grand River Conservation Authority Board until the end of 2023 or until another appointment has been made, whichever comes first. Madam Clerk.
Yeah, so through
Wait,
you.
Sorry. I
Oh, yeah.
apologize. We need a mover and seconder. Ah! I almost caught the clerk wrong there.
You did.
Sorry, who did I see down here? Jason and Bart. Okay?
So through you, Mayor Milne, I've pretty well laid it out in the report there, but just due to timing with this being an election year, it's hard to get appointments in place quickly. So we heard from the GRCA and they recognized that. And then we've been in discussions with Amaranth, East Garifraxa, Melanchthon, and Grand Valley. So one member covers all of those municipalities. Currently, it's Guy Guardhouse, who is the mayor of East Garifraxa. So what we're recommending is extending his appointment just until we can get someone else appointed. We just weren't sure if any other members of councils on any of those respective councils were interested. If we want to move into a discussion quickly right now, if anyone is interested, then I can kind of relay that, or I have made it part of my December 7th report, but I can amend that if we did want to discuss it now. East Garifraxa has let us know that Guy Guardhouse is interested in being appointed again. So I don't know if maybe members aren't prepared to have that discussion now, but if we wanted to, then that would clear it up for the 7th. And I could let them know our intent, but if you want to marinate on it for a bit, that's fine too. I'll leave it part of the December 7th report, but
Okay.
I don't see anyone jumping out of their seat.
I can speak to, Guy has done it for quite a number of
Yes.
years actually, and he's done a really good job of representing us, so I'm campaigning for him. I shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying. Anybody else interested in the job?
And I can speak to Joan directly, but I don't think
Sure.
she's interested. So.
Barbara?
I can also speak to Guy Guardhouse's involvement and qualifications. He has done it for several terms, I think, for as long as I can remember. And he also attends the Upper Grand Watershed Liaison Committee, so I've gotten to know him quite well.
Yep.
Maybe he can help us with the bridge over the wetland to Hagan Street.
Okay, so not hearing any local interest.
Yeah, so for right now, we'll just extend his appointment, just wait and hear in case there is any other interest from any of the other councils. I doubt there will be. So
Okay.
I'll probably be returning with a report likely late December, or if we can all get our answers in, maybe I can do it to the 7th to appoint him, if that's how it works out. But
Sure. All right, so the motion is there.
It is a term of council, Lindsay?
yes, correct, yeah.
All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Lindsay. Chief Administrative Officer Dave Milner. First report is regarding the Dundalk Town Hall, Old Town Hall. Grant funding report. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report CAL 2022-077 for information, and that council directs staff to proceed with the application for green and inclusive community building program funding for the Dundalk Old Town Hall renovations. Someone care to move that, please? Jim, second by Monica. Dave?
So, not much more needs to be said other than it's a shot in the dark to try and get some funding that we think we qualified for. And so we'll put an application in. There's no deadline for funding, but we will work with Wellington Capital or Wellington Investment Corp to put this in and grant match to see if we can get some success. It would relieve us of our commitment to $175,000 in capital, which is a significant amount that we'd have to find someplace. So that's one of the main reasons we're heading in this direction. Plus, to get more things done at the first shot, as far as we can put in an elevator under this project and make the building more accessible.
Very good. Any questions for Dave on that? Jason?
I thought there, we were on $100,000, was that?
No, it was 175 in the,
Oh, was that a lot?
agreement, a one-time payment for capital.
Okay.
Any other questions? Barb?
The project moving forward?
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
good news.
their engineers are working on a design and both, I think, fire and building have looked at the stuff so far. We've had a meeting with their engineers and architect and,
Because I know that we gave them an extension.
yeah,
And pending, their complete evaluation, so
yeah.
that's good.
Excellent. All right. Any further questions? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving right along to the next report, which is Dave's as well. It's dealing with the Roma delegation request. Be it resolved that council receives staff report CAO 2022-078 as information, and that council provides staff with direction and feedback on applying for a minister delegation request at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association Conference in 2023. Hoover? Martin, second by Barb. Dave?
Back to you. like just, where are we gonna go?
Yep.
Through you, Dave, with regard to the education related to Dundalk school capacity, that is more related to capacity of the school, or can we also address the school board's lack of addressing the traffic issues? We're doing the best we can with the location, but we also have to provide, access by emergency services and traffic flow.
Yeah, that may be, sorry for the analogy, but that may be a bit like going to the principal's office to complain about a teacher. I think we should have that discussion with the traffic issue with the local group. Maybe we can add it in, before we get to Roma, but I think the real issue is getting with the minister, getting some funding allocated and getting a project here, but we're just they're getting stonewalled, and I don't think the minister, education leaders at Blue Water or any other are very good at pushing the ministry because they're kind of, I don't know, robots of the Ministry of Education rather than entities. Like we're an entity, we raise funding, we deliver services. They've got rules that get shoved down on them and they don't push back. So they got another letter saying basically, go away, you're not going to get a school for a while, and I think we need to push from the political side.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
So to that, with regard to the funding, they still base their decision on funding on current enrollment and will not consider the advocacy of the developers who are saying, we're going to be building 200 houses a year.
Yeah.
And we're already at capacity.
So I think a lot of, and good the press isn't here, but I think a lot of to do with the getting schools is the squeaky wheel gets attention. And we're not squeaky enough, so we need to be squeaky and get some political push from the developer as well and get with the minister. I know I have had conversations with Flato, and they are trying to, they're concerned and as we are. So I think we need to work with the Minister of Education and get a meeting and have this conversation. So just to advance to the next two.
Thank you.
Policing and, the Bill 23. There's going to be a lot of people talking about Bill 23. I think that's a county discussion. And I think with policing and all that, I don't know. It just seems that we're knocking our head against a cement wall and we get nowhere.
Well, the province has their priorities, and these aren't necessarily theirs, but that doesn't mean we don't need to remind them that we need some attention to these priorities here. So I would suggest we seek these delegations, whether they're with the county as well, or whether they're with a partner municipalities, local by. But I would suggest we proceed to request them at the very least.
I would say,
Yep.
we'll get Clint to talk to the county planners, because I'm sure Kim has this one on her radar.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we'll be just a spoke in the wheel when it comes to that discussion, I
Well, and
think.
the county has submitted their remarks, or their,
Yes.
yeah, regarding Bill 23 to the ministry. So,
And as well, just so you know what's going on, is there's a standing committee at the province that's dealing with Bill 23 and taking delegations. We have the presentation from Watson and Associates that they're presenting to the standing committee, and that's happening in the next few days.
yeah. Okay, everybody's good with that? Is there, oh, go ahead.
Just the second bullet there, Dave, policing and the court's lack of enforcement of charges of punitive penalties. Is that just because they're so backlogged, they want to just push them through and get rid of them? And
Well,
is that really affecting our township?
oh yeah,
Yeah, big time.
like there's a threat, seems like there's a threshold. And, of course, the incident in Dundalk the other day with a weapon being pulled,
Oh, yeah.
that's gonna get responded to. But when we have people calling in that there's a suspected burglary and everybody's fleed and there's maybe nothing missing, or like that just, or like all the stuff at Swinton Park, it just seems like everything's too late. And even when they do get them, they put them before the courts and the courts kick them back out in the street and away we go again. So the lack of, but I'm not sure we can blame that on police. It's the courts. The police are frustrated with the courts as well. I mean, this is a broken record. I've told you before, but I mean, I think the new members need to hear that there's a lot of frustration, and you know, even patrolling in the park in Dundalk. You know, there's frustration with some young people that they can't enjoy the park like they used to, or. But if there was a police presence, would that be still a problem? I don't know. And then their pushback to us is, well, get a sergeant to work out of the ESO in Dundalk, but that's going to cost us likely $400,000 or $500,000 a year. And then the frustrating part with that, when you talk to Chatsworth about it, they'd start working out of Chatsworth, drive 45 minutes to Dundalk, and then drive 45 minutes to Dundalk. So they've got a 6-hour shift in Dundalk. So is that what we're paying for?
Well, like I said, I don't think it hurts to put these issues in front of the minister or the ministry, make them aware of what our concerns are. So I would say proceed with the application to speak to the ministers. Is that what you need, Dave? You got direction?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
You know, we can proceed as with those three. I will work with the county on the third one.
Okay, good. Does anyone have any other issues they want to suggest that we maybe seek a delegation with the minister, Martin?
Well, when we're talking about the education part of it, just another aspect is that I think Dave and I agree with this, it's public land, but it's all fenced off. We're looking for green spaces for kids. I think that should be one of them, like another secondary.
Sorry, what was that?
About not being able to go on the properties. Using their green space for
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah,
For the
good point.
kids. So
Good point. We've talked about
we
that.
pay for it.
Several
We pay
times.
for it.
Yep.
Like I don't know, when it comes to the municipality and local education, it just seems that their responsibility is kick them out the door and get them on the bus. Or kick them out the door and let their parents pick them up. But there's no organization to get the buses out or get the local kids out before the buses, but it's just one big confusion, traffic problems. We get complaints down at the Proton School about emergency services couldn't possibly get in there when all this chaos is going on. So we're putting signs up, but Jim's working on that, and bylaws going to start forcing. But so I mean, why is these kids getting home our responsibility? It should be the education responsibility. Maybe I'm wrong, but the other thing too is crossing guards. And it's like, why don't we? I think we need to have a conversation about that as well with the education people. That maybe the parent-teacher association need to take a hold of that. Fine, maybe we still pay for it, but we can't even get somebody to do crossing guard stuff. Sometimes the odd time we have to send one of our staff in the morning to do it.
Are we
So-
obligated to do that?
We'll be the first ones to get sued if, I guess if we don't, since we put it in, since the beginning of time or whenever it started.
But I see lots of other municipalities, if they don't have any staff, they'll say, there's no crossing guard here today.
So there's a stance we need to consider and take, but have that conversation with the school board.
Sure.
Like, we have sidewalks and take them away, but is it our responsibility to, maybe we can put crossing, lights and stuff like that, but now we gotta put people there to make it safe. And I'm not saying we shouldn't make it safe, but where's the responsibility lie?
Barb?
I think to Martin's point too, the Blue Water District School Board is less open to the municipality or residents using the fields, the soccer fields, the gymnasiums, the community space that's sitting there idle because they've been, insurance is just prohibitive.
I think the Dundalk Soccer did use the schools, and then all of a sudden, bang, we had to go, we came before council when you were there, because we had to pay for cutting the grass. And I think, so we were there, and I think what you just said, Bart, something happened, and I know there was something happened years ago, up in Owen Sound, and I think the liability, they just got scared and they just shut us all down.
Like, when we talked to the premier, that was one thing we brought up, access to school property, and Woodbury and I, we advanced that with him, and he agreed, but it's so far down on the bureaucratic totem pole that, but I think we need to work at fixing it locally, and we have a new school board trustee, let's get them here and talk to them and say, hey, these are the issues.
Yep. Sure. All right, you have the direction you need, Dave?
I was just telling the clerk to write that down. School board trustee.
You have the direction you need?
Yes,
All right,
thank
all
you.
those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on, that's all of Dave's reports. Consent items, you see regular business for information there. There's two. Bridge inspection report and the building bylaw and canine report. Does anybody have any questions regarding either of those two items?
Did we move or seconder? Did I miss that?
No?
Okay.
No? I was just making sure you were still with me.
I'm with you. I'm here.
So the motion is, be it resolved that council approve the items on regular business consent agenda dated today, save and accept items if there's any to be withdrawn, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Would anyone, Madam Clerk, could you maybe, for the benefit
I was
of-
just gonna say, yeah.
Please.
Through you, Mayor, I'll
How is
just
this gonna work?
explain the consent agenda. So the consent agenda, you'll see it on every regular council agenda, not always on a special one, but we did add it here. So there's 4 sections to the consent. There's regular business, which would be reports from municipal officers that are just for information. There's no recommendation, just that you receive it for information. And then correspondence is anything that we receive from other agencies, boards, that type of thing. Resolutions of other municipalities are resolutions that others have approved and they're seeking support or just sending for our information. And then there's a closed session one that if there was something confidential that we needed to just share for information with council, it would go under there. So what we do is the motion goes on the floor, but if you have an item that you want to pull and move a recommendation more than just receive it for information, we would pull that item out ahead of time and then discuss all the other items if there's something someone wants to say. And then we would finish that motion to receive everything for information, and then we'd move on to the item that was pulled. So it's a bit cumbersome until you get used to it, but that's how the consent agenda works.
Barb?
And do you still want us to notify you if we intend to pull any items and the outcome so that the mayor is informed?
Yeah, so usually we'll ask that if you had an item you wanted to pull, you just let us know ahead of time, and then we can get a motion crafted just so it's, not so last minute. But if something did come up last minute, we can do it on the fly too.
And we can still ask questions about the
Yeah.
items, we're just not changing the outcome. That helps.
So, with all that said, would anyone like to remove either of the two in the regular business section for further discussion? Okay, not seeing any, so both those items are on the motion to receive. Does anybody have any questions regarding either of those two reports? I thought we moved that.
Did we move it?
I read it. Does that not count?
I think you read it and then I started talking.
All right, yeah, she entered, that's right.
Yes.
So, we need a mover and seconder, so Jason and Martin. Good. Now, does anybody have any questions regarding those two items? Not seeing any, go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, in the bylaw, I can't read it on the screen here, but I did write down, there was a part where vehicles, you had it very highlighted. And the numbers are pretty high. Are the numbers getting better with that, or if there's some reason you had it highlighted, I just thought it was curious, that's all.
I have to apologize, Councillor Shipston, I was focusing on another matter, so I'm gonna have to ask you to extrapolate on that. So where we...
Going through bylaw, the complaints unresolved.
On the K-9 report?
Yeah, I guess.
Building bylaw,
Building
K-9
bylaw,
report.
yeah, building, sorry.
Just have to bring it up.
9.1.2 on the agenda.
You had vehicles listed and you had it highlighted. I just wondered why you had it highlighted. If there was anything special.
It would be parking, probably when needed at the time.
I know.
I can't read it on the screen here.
Go ahead, Barb.
If it's under the page 2, under bylaw enforcement complaints resolved, vehicles happens to be bolded.
I see it. My move every time. Okay, and I just didn't correct it. Vehicles are ongoing concern. Very well.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah,
Barb?
just wondered.
But when you're talking about vehicles complaints resolved, that's not, it could be parking, it could be derelict vehicles in driveways, unlicensed, what would that?
The majority of this would be derelict vehicles left in either township parking spots where we tow them out, or on people's properties where we chase them to other.
Okay, thank you.
We're very fortunate right now, the price of scrap is up, so people are, once we inform them of that, they quite often.
Good. Any further questions on either one of those items? Barb?
I was wondering if Jim might want to speak to the bridge inspection report, since this is something new for new members. And he did mention it in the budgeting.
By all means, go ahead, Jim, please.
Yeah, similarly, council has seen in the past of these reports, you know, these targets that they keep throwing at us for these recommendations, you know, we need $12 million in the next year to fix bridges. In the next 5 years, we need 9.7. In the next 6 to 10 total, we need 29.6 million. Like you can see through the budget process we're going through, there's no way that these are attainable to achieve without desperate funding source. Because so all we can do, like I had mentioned, is build on what we have and work on it. But again, including no bridge projects this year in this budget would be 2 years in a row without not addressing any major bridge work. So the bridges we have identified in the budget are fairly minor. So and we can do them with our own staff at a cheaper cost. But I would recommend that council try to keep some sort of bridge work at least in the 23 budget, and if we have to skip 24 maybe, but at least because we skipped 22, try to make a difference in this report a little bit. So. The other thing, this one talks about a structural evaluation that was completed on Bridge S114, that's on Southgate Road 04. west of 57. We had a recommendation from Burnside looking at it to do load posting on the axle bases of 12, 18, and 23 tones. And it also mentioned about contacting fire departments if that was a challenge for them. We had a response from them, and no, that's no concern of theirs. It is a concern for snow plowing equipment. Taking a tandem truck over there fully loaded is over the posting. So, but our general routine, if we have to sand over that bridge or in that vicinity, because it's a gravel road, that truck is generally in practice going over there fairly lightly loaded. So we're going to bring a report because we need a bylaw to do the load restriction. And I was going to tie it into this report, and I thought with new council and everything, it was maybe a little too congested. So there'll be a report coming in a future council meeting posting. The reason it was delayed from the spring was when we go to Good Roads, we see these different vendors and contractors and opportunities. So one of them is about these, they can do replacement bridge decks, and that's kind of what this one targets and needs, is a bridge deck. And I asked back when we received the report to them, an email, because they're showing you all these things at their display and their little videos, and so yeah, now we're interested. So I emailed them, nothing. Tried again a little while later, nothing, and then this kind of came back up again, kind of with the bridge report identified that this should be posted. So I reached out again, still nothing. So I don't even know why these guys go to Good Roads if they don't even want to talk to you. But anyhow, I wanted a solution that was possibly viable, maybe not for this year, but for future if there was a price to put tag to it. So that's kind of why there was a little drag and delay in getting this one looked at. But as you can see in some of the information that we shared with you too, the graphs out of the report, we're kind of at a flat line for where we have been with bridges and their conditions. Generally, when we do any bridge work now, we tie into that new guide rail systems and those end treatments and that. That's kind of been what we've been doing the last number of years in bridges. It identifies to it, it's maybe not spelled out in here, that a lot of our bridges don't have those protection systems, and to install them, again, millions of dollars. But the problem is we can't just go around and start putting on guide rail systems on a bridge, because technically as soon as you touch that bridge abutment or whatever, you do something to it, that brings the bridge code into effect and you have to bring it up to standard. So it's not that we can just, so when we do something, we can't attach it to the bridge. If we were to do something, it has to stay back. So then we don't, if someone challenges us in the future that we altered this bridge by tying in a guide rail system, something happened. Whereas, anyways, I think you're getting maybe what I'm trying to say with regards to that. But again, a lot of bridges were built back at the same time, in the same era. And now they're starting to see those curves of deterioration, and nothing too major, but there are some bigger bridges that maybe in the future here we'll have to think of some alternatives. And we mentioned in the report of having traffic studies to support it, and different other users of the road, what their concerns are, whether we may have to close some bridges in the future or restrict them in a way. You can put barriers across the top of them, steel beams or something. So if a tractor or a tractor trailer sees that bridge, and even though it's been posted or not, if they cross it, they're going to do damage to their stuff before, as well as the bridge maybe. So there are some other mitigations that you can do to try and alleviate some of those situations. But again, we did in the past 10 years or so, we've did some $1 million bridges. We've done a few of them. They're a little bit few and far between. We try and look for a grant source to tie in with that when we do a big bridge like that. And Again, what we are proposing with these dual culverts has been working well for replacing your normal cast-in-place box culvert that was done back in the era of the 50s or wherever it was. They're, again, designed with the dual pipe system is to take those what we used to call 100-year events. Now some are calling them 1,000-year events, but they're happening twice a year or something. But those dual pipes can take a lot more. They may not look, you look at the little creek that there's nothing there, but they're designed to take some of those big overflows if those events happen. And we did do major bridge work in 2021 with Side Road 49 and S108 and S109, the rehab and replacement of those structures. So, and one's just an overflow structure for that. But that area did see back in 2018 or 17, like 5 or something inches, 8 inches of rain in a few hours, and very affected at that time. So it makes sense to build in for those type of events that we're going to see.
Very good, thank you, Jim.
The only other comment I would say is there's a map there that usually we attach to this report anyway. That shows you the bridge locations when we're talking. S means Southgate, so that's what the S is in front of the bridge. Before amalgamation, bridges were, and during the early phase before these reports got generated the way they were in the system, they were P for Proton and E for Egremont. So now this is the way we look at our assets that way.
Good. Alrighty, any further questions?
I just have one.
Yep, go ahead.
The double culverts, what's the life for them? They're plastic or steel? Or both?
No, we're using, it's called Type 2 aluminized CSP. They should have about a 50-year lifespan is generally what they put on them, but
You and I won't have to worry about them, Martin. Well, I won't anyway, maybe you will, I don't know. Alrighty then, so the motion has been moved and seconded, all those in favor? The clerk's looking at me, did we not move in second?
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
good.
okay, alright. Now you got me
You
spooked
can't
over
tell
here.
with my mask on. You're good.
Yeah, all you see is your eyes, and I'm thinking, oh, what did I do now? Alright, excellent, moving on to correspondence. We have, well, there's a number of items there. Does anybody, we move inside. Be it resolved, the council received the items in the correspondent consent agenda dated November 23, save and accept whatever items want to be removed as information. Mover. Barb? Jim? Thank you. Does anybody want any of those items removed for further consideration? Not seeing any. Does anybody have any questions regarding? Barb, go ahead.
Through you to, I did send you a note about the SMART, number 9.2.7, SMART correspondence, board minutes. Not that the minutes had anything to do with my question, but it was just let's make sure we don't run into the same issue that we had, and if you could just look into any requirements that we have to notify SMART, whether we're staying in or giving them their 12-month notice.
Yeah.
That was brought forward several years ago, and we missed it last year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Not seeing any, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Resolutions of other municipalities. Be it resolved that council received the items of the resolutions of other municipalities consent agenda dated November 23, 2022 as information. Would anyone like either of those two items pulled for further consideration? Nope. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. I'll call the question. All
Mover,
those-
seconder.
Sorry?
Mover, seconder.
Jason? Jim, thank you.
He is new.
There's not many to pick from. There's not many to pick from, just write somebody down. Barb, go ahead.
With regard to the CN Railway contribution requirements, that resolution from the Township of Warwick, just wondering if, I read that and I'm not sure if it has anything to do, I mean, the county would be more interested in the lack of funding for,
No, I think that is, if.
it's a Drainage Act.
The Drainage Act, it's no different than if there's a municipal drain. So if any of CN Rail's land or their right-of-way is drained by a municipal act, or a municipal drain, they would incur the percentage of their area. And it sounds like from this, that CN's saying, no, we're not gonna pay it. Well, no, under the Drainage Act, you are gonna pay it. So they're having a bit of a fight over a fence.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just wondered,
I think
because
that's-
we have a lot of CN rail as well, and we might have municipal drains that,
no, there's
no,
no,
we don't.
there's no CN and there's no CP in Grace.
Oh, well, no, but I just wondered if the trail, no.
It's
the
county
trail,
owned.
It's owned by the
that's-
county.
Okay, thank you.
But, I mean, at one time it was, obviously.
Right.
Any case, Jim, go ahead.
Well, and over here, some of the rail trail is owned privately now.
The CN line?
This line through Holstein here,
Yeah.
some of it's private.
Yeah, all of it is.
Got bought, yeah.
Oh.
But where over our Gundock way, that's all maintained by the county
Yeah.
under their ownership.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
No, I had that same thought, I had it written down, they are built up and there's, ditches.
Yep.
That's infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. Now we have a closed session. Wait, that's for information. Yes, we do have a closed meeting, so, do I need to read all that, Madam Clerk?
You should, yeah.
I should, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at, it's 1:02, in order to address matters related to litigation or potential litigation and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. The first subject is solicitor-client privilege discussions on future communications with the property owner, verbal update, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality. The second subject is confidential agreement discussions, that is a verbal update on personal matters about an identifiable individual and labor relations or employee negotiations. The third subject is the new CEO recruitment, that is a verbal update, and those remaining or asked to remain in the meeting is Chief Building Official Beth Fisher, Public Works Manager Jim Ellis, HR Coordinator Cale Best, Clerk Lindsay Green, and Chief Administrative Officer Dave Milner. Who would like to move that? Martin, thank you. And Jason, thank you. So, I think, is everybody no, Liam and Terry are being asked to excuse themselves before we're going to close session. Sure, we'll adjourn, we'll recess for a couple minutes while we,
So you want to just do it in here?
might as well. discuss only those matters that we went into closed session to discuss. Lindsay, could you read that motion, please?
I can, Mayor Milne. So our first item in closed session, motion coming out is, be it resolved that council receive the verbal update regarding solicitor-client privilege discussions about future communications with a property owner as information.
Okay. Moved by Barb, seconded by Martin. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. We now have the confirming bylaw.
No.
No?
Two more.
What?
So our second item in closed session. So motion coming out of closed session for our second item. Be it resolved the council receive the verbal update regarding a confidential agreement discussions as information.
Sure. Mover and seconder. Jason and Martin. All those in favor? That's carried. And I bet you got a third one.
I do have a third one. Our third item, motion coming out of closed session, be it resolved that council receive the verbal update regarding the new CAO recruitment as information, and that council direct staff to proceed as discussed in closed session.
Thank you. Monica and Jim. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
Confirming by.
Just making sure. Just confirming. You tell us, because I don't know.
Okay. I'd be happy to, Madam Clerk.
I didn't hear that, sir.
I was just suggesting that for the benefit of our new councillors, what a confirming bylaw
Take it away.
allows. It covers all of our decisions during that meeting in case we forgot to pass a resolution. I think I got that right?
Yes,
Lindsay?
correct, yes.
So it's a blanket agreement
Okay,
on everything that we covered in the agenda.
perfect.
But as long as we've had this clerk, we have never forgot to move
No,
or
that's right.
second or vote on a motion.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so confirming bylaw, I need a mover and seconder, please. Martin and Jim, thank you very much. All those in favor? That is carried. And now that we have completed the agenda, I will declare the meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you all.